Take a bit of time. You see? All right. No, I know. Welcome to the program. Please, Mr. Rattigan. I don't know why it takes so long for come, brethren.
Why Rattigan, I like to stay in the shadows a lot of the times. I only come out when I only come out with good company, for good company. So
All right.
definitely,
All right.
it's a pleasure to be here with you and with Herb and with Patrick and all of your listeners. I'm a avid listener, I must tell you. I watch from a distance and I smile every time I watch your show, especially one of the last ones, with Mystic. I believe you're doing Mystic Sensation. That was a wonderful one a few days ago or so. So it's a pleasure to know that we have the intellectual support, and the discernment of the wider society is there. That is very comforting to us because we have wondered for a while, how many people would really understand the resolve of the Maroons within this new modern era, with
I
how
know.
we're
Hold on
seeing
one
the
second. I know. There's something wrong with my headphones, Scratchy. Is your mic or Patrick?
and no, it's not Mike. It sounds like
Your
a
mic,
fun is Patrick.
Patrick.
Fun?
Yes.
Yeah,
Hold on. That better?
Yeah, man.
little
Yeah.
better, but yeah, man. All right,
Yeah.
there you
Yeah.
go.
Me right that time, Patrick. Me right, right? Me right
Yes,
that
yes, yes.
Cause me always wrong with Patrick, you know. Me always a challenge him and I get the facts them wrong. So all right, finish up on that.
No, man, I was just saying it's really a pleasure to be here, man, and to know that all of the wonderful discord that is happening around the nation right now, it's really highlighting the purpose of the conversation around constitutional reform, and it has definitely ignited, a new resounding oomph, I would say, in people, beginning to dissect a lot of what was happening behind closed doors, is how I would put it, while people such as yourself, platforms such as yourself and others are really bringing to the forefront important things that a nation of people must know. Jamaica seems to be forgetting right now, and I wouldn't say the wider Jamaica, I would say the current government of Jamaica, unfortunately, they're taking an approach of forgetting the first peoples of Jamaica and forget trying to, push away the culture, disenfranchise the culture, and I'm just a proud Jamaican as well, but I'm a Maroon first, right? I believe you were saying that when you went to a Kongpong, when you talked to the
Yeah.
chief, he said to you that he's a Maroon first, and understanding the legalities of it. We as Maroons who hold, what we said, Jamaican papers and Maroon papers, we would classify that international as dual citizenship, right? In the context of how we are looking at, because you made a you made a profound statement. If
Stop it right there, sir. Stop it right. Let me make a profound. Hold on. Patrick, can you
Yes,
mute? I will still get some breeze noise. Please.
yes,
All right. Yeah.
yeah, man. You, you
It's
made
not
a
a profound statement. Yeah.
you made a profound statement on one of the talk shows where you're saying that if the leadership of a government is going to cut off resources from a community, an indigenous community or a section of the population, and they start to fend for themselves in a sustainable way and start to defend their territory and communicate with international entities to try and explain their legal position and legal claim to land as landowners on the island. We're witnessing that any entity that does that and disenfranchise a section of people in the population, they have the inherent right to defend themselves in terms of their birthright. It's not always about physically, but it's about using the pen, right, and making sure that your claim is on the record. So I'm gonna leave more questions to be asked. I'm just here to dialogue as much as I can with you.
Okay. All right. Pleasure. Um, Patrick, let me start with you. What's the most important question that you have on your mind that you would like to have some representative from the Maroons um, discuss with you directly, if you have one?
If I was to answer that question you just asked directly, or yeah, to address that question you just asked directly, I would say it is really to give us a background as to how did the Maroons come about in the first place, and what has been the Maroon experience over the last 3-4 centuries.
I appreciate that
Because
question. Okay, go ahead.
yeah,
Sorry, Pat.
because Maroons have existed for centuries. It's not a group that just formed. In fact, it's not just a group. You know, it's like a state within a state. But rather than jumping ahead to answer the question, that would be the question I would pose, so that we can
Right.
really get into a real healthy discussion around it.
All right. Mute again, Patrick, because your fan's still on, right?
No, no,
Yeah,
Yeah, man. Some blowing into your mic, Patrick. Just a little bit.
yeah,
Yeah.
unless it's the breeze from outside or something. But
that's it. All right, so just mute in the meantime.
Just mute in and out, Patrick, and we should be good. Yeah, perfect. To answer your question, is a very good question. Thank you. Let's talk about the Maroon story, right? Maroons never do they do we do not look at ourselves as ever having a slave history. Our history doesn't start with slavery or end with slavery. As an unconquerable people, we can trace our history going back, prior to 1492, to the, before, when we talk about the Moors that were controlling, the seven seas as merchants, and the Dominion, the Ottoman Empire, um, and the civilizations that existed in the Western Hemisphere. A lot of people do not understand that civilizations existed here before, Columbus, right? If we understand the story of Columbus, or the history of Columbus, coming through Isabella and Ferdinand, it was only after the fall of Alhambra in Granada, Spain, the Moors, whereby, they were able to try, and conquer the Western Hemisphere. And through various Christian, what you call papal bulls, in terms of the doctrine of discovery, and various other paperwork that was coming out of the church, to go under the guise of uh, God and Christianity, that they should own land. They were going on a conquest all over to tear through indigenous communities, first people communities, and pretty much wipe out their existence. The beauty about it, since 1492, there's only one set of people that can show on the record that they defeated this extreme, um what I would say, evil. Let's just put it in that terminology so you can teach, a child, right? This evil force that was going around on this conquest, that was, killing, raping, pillaging people's lands and everything. The Maroons of Jamaica, especially now in the descendants of those Maroons. And we're talking about, if we're going to identify them, you're talking about those people who are identified as Tainos, Arawaks, Moors, and also the various Africans that also came over, that, would have been able to escape from plantations or indentured servitude, and, would have been able to connect with the Maroons in the mountains. In 1738, the people are identified as Maroons within the historical lexicon, because that's not a true nationality, but we use that term, just it is the easiest term right now, because it's within the history, the context, we're able to identify ourselves. But us as a people in 1738 hold a very supreme authority on the island, because we were able to show the rest of the world that we have a, when they're considering us black people, Africans, and, third class people, or two-thirds of a person, chattel property. We were able to show the entire world that we existed. From there, we see that the United States of America, in its coining of its independence, they fought the same exact enemy that we had in 1738, which was the British Crown. And they were able to have their independence and coin a constitution as well. And that came right after us, you know, in around 1787, I believe, right? 1786, 87. So when we're looking at the chronology of time, we're realizing that obviously the Maroons in Jamaica, as first peoples who did make a stand and can show that they have allodial titles to land, aboriginal titles to land, prior to a government that has a responsible charter as an independent parliament, right? We are able to defend our claim to sovereignty. So that is who the Maroons are, and you know, tracing their history from that point to now, and you know, we as Maroons, that's what we stand on today.
Let me ask you a question before I throw it to Herb. Is the question or the challenge facing the Maroons in their ongoing engagement with the government of Jamaica, is it one of land rights, or is it one of sovereignty, or is it intertwined?
Yes, a great question again, Rattigan. You're firing them off today. It is best described as an intertwined situation. And let me say this, because there's going to be a lot of the government officials that are listening to this interview, because they obviously want to understand the temperament and the mindset behind, you know, the administration today, Chief Curry's administration, and what are our intentions. Brother Rattigan, Brother Herb Nelson, and Brother Patrick, this thing is so simple if we use common sense, that if there was a genuine nature of conversation on the other side, with the amount of bridges that Chief Curry's administration has opened to try and have communication and dialogue, the rhetoric that bothers them, such as sovereignty, when you're talking about government to government relations, right? These things can be had behind closed doors, you know, right? It doesn't have to be a public squabble that now would, what considered to the current administration, seem like an attack against the integrity of the independent parliament of Jamaica, right? The charter that they're operating under, the ordering council, right? Obviously, it's something that affects them. So for quite some time, the Maroons, in terms of the Chief Curry's administration in Akongkong, we have tried to dial down the rhetoric of sovereignty, because we understand that it creates some kind of diplomatic tension with the current administration, as this is the only current administration that does not and has not communicated with the Akongpong Maroons, you know, for 3 years consecutively, and it's only since Chief Richard Curry has become chief that this type of posture has been taken against the Akongpong Maroons. So it being intertwined currently, Brother Rattigan, is because we have to stand it. You know, I had an interview with Dion Jackson Miller about 2 years ago, right? And I explained to her that what our ancestors left us, that was, you know, it was a blood oath. What was left for us is a perfect state of freedom that shall exist forever, right? So as long as we have the unborn coming forward into life and we preserve this as the custodians, there is something called a birthright that exists for them, Rattigan, right? So this birthright that exists for them is an inalienable right, right? This inalienable right, because of the understanding of what sovereignty today is considered. Today, according to the American states in 1933, there is a document called the Montevideo Convention, right, on states. And inside that document, all the states have agreed, and this is within the hemisphere. Jamaica was a part of it. You know, America, Brazil, everybody within this region, when they understand who they're going to consider a state, a legitimacy of who they consider a state, there are 4 requirements. One, You have to have a people that can identify them. You have to have a government. You have to have a defined territory. And you have to have the most important one. You have to have the capacity to enter into relations with other nations, right? So that means one other state or sovereign must recognize you and create a document, hence the Peace Treaty of 1738. Just by that very nature of what happens under the definition, legal and international definition of a treaty, we understand that the Maroons do have statehood. Most people don't understand how to interpret the peace treaty as nothing more than a commercial document, right, of how we interrelate with each other on the island. That document should be updated, and we, the Maroons, have been trying to ask for dialogue because since emancipation, yes, a few of those clauses will not would not make any sense. They would be redundant at this point, right? They're not active anymore. So we would need, according to proper diplomatic protocol, and the government of Jamaica needs to understand that the world is watching them, because if you're dealing with the Maroons at this level, there are many governments, other than if they already kind of are stakeholders here already, they're going to be wary about how many more new deals they're going to kind of be doing with Jamaica. Just saw you were reading off so many different itemized things from the travel advisory and stuff. And most of that is dealing with, other than crime, is dealing with corruption and fraud. And, if this is the mindset of Jamaica, that these reports are coming out of other nations, then what is that telling us? Right? It's telling us that we're under a microscope. So it would behoove the government of Jamaica, the current government, to look at how you even treat your people internally, your first people that have documents that are recognized by outside forces. So it's not we who are saying who we are. We have proclamations from countries, diplomatic communications recognizing January 6th, the treaty, March 1st, giving homage and paying homage to this period and time, because our flag is older than many other flags, right? And when you talk about the law of nations, these things are not taught obviously within the academia of Jamaica on a mass scale. So we understand a lot of it flies over many people's head, right, Brother Rattigan? But without going too much further down it, it's just a thing that I would advise the government of Jamaica to look at the last 3 years of Chief Richard Curry's administration, trying to consecutively and feverishly try to open dialogue with the government. So we did not get to this point where there is almost an intense divide between the intellectuals, right? That some intellectuals are willing to risk looking completely stupid or ignorant, right? Even with the amount of alphabets behind them, their names, all because of a tribalistic mentality, right? So ignorance to the law is no excuse. That's the very first phrase most of the lawyers learn when they go into the bar and go into legal school. And it's something that they need to keep dear to their mind, because you're going to lose the respect of the international community, the respect and integrity of of discerning legal affairs and international affairs. So for that, Rattigan, I hope that in this intermixing of the land claim and sovereignty, that we actually can open dialogue with the government, especially that there's a constitutional reform underway.
Okay. Thanks. Herb.
Mute. Okay, I'm unmuted. Greetings, Ambassador. Patrick, greetings to you too. And of course, Ambassador, I wanted to look back at some history here, right? It says, of course, Jamaican Maroons are descendants of Africans who freed themselves from slavery in the colony of Jamaica. They established communities of free black people in the island mountainous interior, primarily in eastern parishes. Okay. What I also see here is when the English invaded Jamaica in 1655,
Mm-hmm.
most Spanish colonists fled. Many enslaved Africans who were there escaped, and along with free black mulattoes and some native Taino, formed diverse groups in the Jamaican interior. These groups coalesced into the Maroon communities, which resisted enslavement and sought autonomy. So this has been going on with the so-called Spanish Maroons, who created stockaded mountain farms, um, and one they say was it Louis Vale in modern day St.
Yeah,
Catherine Parish,
Lovidasville.
Lovidasville.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. Of course, it lists Maroon Wars. The first Maroon War involved Leeward and Windward Maroons,
Mm-hmm.
right? Treated as worst time with the colonial government. Second Maroon War occurred due to tensions between Governor Lindsay and the Leeward Maroons, right? And they shipped out 600 Maroons to Nova Scotia because the governor double crossed them,
Mm-hmm.
right? And Nova Scotia is in Canada, I assume. That's what they're talking about, right?
Yes. Yes.
And they say eventually many Maroons left Nova Scotia, settled in Freetown, Sierra Leone, that's
Sierra
Africa,
Leone. Yes.
where they formed the Sierra Leone Creole ethnic identity.
Mm-hmm.
So, knowing that this deep um, legacy is there for you to follow, once the Samaka Maroons,
Mm-hmm.
who have been fighting for their collective land rights in Suriname,
Mm-hmm.
they took it to the Inter-American Court of Human Rights
Mm-hmm.
and won the case in 2007.
Mm-hmm.
What were the Jamaican Maroons waiting on when they saw this? And why wasn't action taken to solidify their position in the same manner?
Mm-hmm. Good
That,
question.
yeah,
Go ahead. Finish. No, finish, Herb. I'm sorry.
yeah. You know, that's part one.
Mm-hmm.
But part two has to be, this is now 2024,
Mm-hmm.
17 years later, and we still see this hassle coming from the government, where you guys keep getting pushed around and nobody is pushing back in terms of going back to the Inter-American Court of Human Rights and to the UN, because the UN also says that there's a UN department that support the rights of indigenous people.
Yeah, the Committee on the Elimination of Racial Discrimination. Sir.
Right,
Yeah.
right. So we should be getting help.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of you, the
Yes,
Maroon,
man.
should be getting help from two very powerful entities. What's going on?
All right. So let me start with the latter, right? So we did actually in 2022, November 2022, closer to the end, going into December. It was I believe it was the 108th third session, treaty body session for the Committee on the Elimination of Racial Discrimination. At that time, as faith would have it, Professor Shepard, Vereen Shepard, was actually the chairman of that committee at the time. So it was a very good time for us, Kongpong Maroons, and a few other indigenous communities also put a report forward to the United Nations that is on the record, as well as a Kongpong. Now, a Kongpong record is there, and we got an opportunity to speak directly with the committee in private prior to the committee speaking to the state party, meaning Jamaica. I believe Minister Babsy Grange, was part of that presentation, because Jamaica was under a big microscope during that entire presentation. You guys can go and look that up, as it's 108th session, treaty body session, third. And if you want, Brother Rattigan, I'll send you after this. I can send you the links to all of that, so you can really look at even our report, because it's important, Herb, to know that we have a Kongpong right? The state of Akongpong has been putting and documenting on record with the United Nations to the fact that during the third committee, the one of the country rapporteurs, no, actually, that one of the members of the task force, who was doing the report for, because it's every 4 years you have to come in and you have to actually show to the committee that you have actually caught up to the many recommendations when that you are receiving as a state that entered into this body, right? So whenever the task force member started to speak with the government of Jamaica and their members, the ambassador, they specifically asked about the treaty. The treaty was brought up for the record. I believe Chief Richard Curry would have posted that on his social media. There were many questions that were asked of the government, and I'm just so sorry that that was not broadcast live for many people to see. I think we'll be able to get a few more clippings out for you guys, and you guys, you'll be able to show it on your platform. But there were direct questions asked, and there was just a dance, a diplomatic dance around many of these various questions that were being put forward. It is important to note, Herb, and when I send the link, you'll be able to download all these PDFs. The country rapporteur made a report to the government of Jamaica. So this is the reason why we did not really have to go as yet to the interim court, right? Meaning the state of Akongpong. Why? While we had a case locally in Jamaica, in the Jamaican courts, because what happens with the Inter-American Court and the international courts, there is a procedure of law in terms of what they would call civil procedures, where they could say, have you exhausted all efforts locally or within the court procedures before you have even come into our jurisdiction asking for help? Furthermore, you have to, when we look at the jurisdiction of the Inter-American courts, a lot of the rulings are not necessarily binding upon the state, right? Even though the Inter-American Court can make a certain type of ruling, they'll actually let you know that a lot of what you have to do procedurally, they can't force the government, or any government for that matter, who is not signed on, or even if they're signed on, because of this whole state and territorial sovereignty issue, right? Now, the government of Jamaica is part of the courier of the British Crown, as the British Crown is still the head of state of Jamaica. So the British Crown, as the protectorate of the government of Jamaica, obviously the Inter-American courts cannot intervene or force the government of Jamaica. They can only make public recommendations and a ruling that will set some kind of precedence for the courts to interpret as public law. When the judges interpret an Inter-American ruling, they'll interpret it as public law, right? For the benefit of what is called jurisprudence within the courts. That is what I believe happened the last time, where as said, some of the Windward Maroons collectively came together and worked with a human rights attorney that did bring one of those cases, Herb, 2 years ago, right? While Akongpong had their case locally. So there was a fight going on two fronts. You understand? So it didn't make sense for Akongpong to go and put another case into the Inter-American Court and exhaust all of our resources at the time. We were watching our brothers from the Windward Maroons decide to go on the international side, and we were now exhausting all efforts locally, right? This is how Faith would have had it. The beauty of it is that the ruling that came out of the Inter-American Court allowed one of the judges to see that in the public interest, and in terms of public law, that injunction was given. I don't know if you guys remember that, right? But an injunction was applied for no mining, no nothing, anything at all. We also had an injunction. So what was happening in terms of international law being put out, and the local court seeing that there's a case here as well, right? And not only our case, there was another case, I believe, with Hugh Dixon, and I believe they were using attorney Hilton, right, as their attorney. They were able to actually get the injunction at the time, right? So there were many people fighting, Herb. So it's almost as if we didn't want to cross each other, right? Where everybody took a lane and we're just kind of going full steam ahead. What did that do? For quite some time, it did disrupt and stop bauxite mining, right, within the cockpit country. A lot of the companies were losing money, especially what many would have remembered as Noranda is no longer Noranda. Once
Mhm.
those claims started going on the record, if you guys check your chronology, you'll see all of this what was happening from even when Chief Richard Curry went down to some of the sites and started spray painting maroon on some of the big stones and around the entire area in terms of making claim to certain rights to the land. This is prior to the case, right? All of a sudden you'll see that there is no more Naranda, right? It's now reformed and reshaped as a company called Discovery, right? And then if you start to look at the whole of that shell company orientation, you'll start to realize that it's just a shuffling of the blocks around. Obviously it's hard to do business in Jamaica. Why? Because cockpit country is a very hot topic. It's a hot potato, right? You have the government of Jamaica, unfortunately, that believes that they do not need to speak with the indigenous communities about this indigenous territory. And they are now, cutting leases and signing leases and making promises that they cannot actually fulfill legally. And the attorneys for these major companies and multinational companies are making their clients aware of the risk management system. So I hope that answers your question, Herb.
It does to some degree. Now, you mentioned the 108 treaty body session where
Yes.
various human rights treaties are discussed
Yes.
by independent experts, right?
Yes.
Convention against torture and other cruel, inhuman, or degrading treatment or punishment, right?
Correct.
Have you guys noted anything that would be degrading treatment or punishment um, that is being practiced against Akapang Maroons? Convention on the Rights of the Child? Are all the children of the Maroons in your community being given education, health, and protection from exploitation, especially health caused by the bauxite pools and stuff that is poisonous?
Mm-hmm.
Um, you know, these are some of the things that when you look at were all of these things discussed at this treaty body session,
Mm-hmm.
and your social and cultural rights, economic and so on and so forth when it comes to rights,
Mm-hmm.
right to education and food security.
Mm-hmm.
How does that play out when you have the bauxite areas poisoning everything around the place?
Right. No, that was absolutely brought up, Herb. All of these various facets and violations that would encompass, everything under the United Nations Declarations on the Rights of Indigenous People, United Nations Declaration on Human Rights, the rights of a child. A lot of these clauses and articles are actually being violated. But here's the interesting fact, and this is to tickle our minds. So we think
You're muted. You're muted.
Oh,
Okay.
sorry. Yes, Jamaica is a signatory to a lot of these charters, but
Right.
unfortunately, they have not ratified into local legislation a lot of how these international laws are going to apply here. The only one that we have gotten that is close to being aligned with some form of freedom, what is called almost like a Bill of Rights, similar if compared to the United States of America, right? Is the 2011 Fundamental Rights and Freedoms that was ratified. That's basically the amendment to the
As
Constitution.
part of the Constitution, right?
Correct, correct. That in 2011. Now, when you look at that, that does give some good context that was expressed in terms of rights, but it's still not the totality that needs to be there. And that was actually expressed in the report by the country rapporteur at the 108 treaty body session after seeing the myriad of cases discontent and objection to the state party's report that they would have entered onto the record. The state party, watch this, and I really want you guys to get it and read it. When it comes to the Maroons, when the state party, Jamaica, right, the government of Jamaica was making their presentation as to Akongpong and the Maroons, they said everything was good. They were in great relationships with the Maroons and with us, and that they helped us to put on our January 6th event. Now, and this is funny, this is now 2024. Since Chief Richard Curry ascendancy to the office of chief, the government of Jamaica has not assisted in one January 6th event. Not one member of the Jamaican government, not one minister, nobody has come to Akongpong and actually represented for saying that on the side of the British or the side of the Jamaican government, nothing at all. When we communicated with the Governor General in the last January 6th festival replied, and the office said that they would come. Then a matter of a day later said that, okay, someone is going to actually give the speech for the Governor General. And then within a day later, that was all gone, and said, nobody will actually be bringing a speech, and the Governor General will not be represented. And we were laughing at this point. We were like, okay, well, this is obvious what is happening, right?
Right.
So at this, so Rattigan, it goes back to what you asked. It has to be intertwined at this point, right? Because where it was a land claim at first, and then us trying to discuss how can we create a Republic Jamaica that encompass the totality of everybody, and most importantly, that the Maroons, the indigenous people, the first people, have proper representation, right? Keynote, and I'll put the floor to you guys to kind of help me with this segue, is when the current government of Jamaica says that they're not going to fund this section of Jamaica because under the claims that we're saying that we're sovereign, right? Now, there's a treaty that exists, and the British High Commissioner came here twice, 2019 and 2020, and reiterated with no ambiguity exactly that the government of Jamaica should now be the responsible party for the treaty, now that you have an independent parliament, basically, right? So I don't, and I'm going to give it to you, Rattigan, I don't understand where, if they feel that, they have a saying, and I'm going to yield. They have a saying, when communication breaks down, right, it only leads to a point where there's no amicable solution, and that is kind of where we're going. We're almost being forced, Rattigan, to stick our flag in the ground, right, publicly, and obviously then every action has an equal and opposite reaction because of our claims being made. So the integrity of the state of Jamaica is being shaken, right? And I'm just saying there should be some wise people over there who are hearing me. And if they're doing their research, Rattigan, they'll be knowing I'm speaking from a place of understanding exactly how the system works over there. My family was very much intertwined and served this government honorably. And they left because of certain players and people that did, and certain scrupulous things that happened within different transitions of power, right? So when I actually talk, that's why I said to you, Rattigan, I don't usually talk often, but when I talk on platforms like this that are really carrying substance, because I know deeply that there should already have been communication with us and the government of Jamaica. It is clear as day. The former Prime Minister Bruce Golding tried to open communication with Chief Richard Curry and had him on a platform talking publicly to signal to the government of Jamaica to try and find a way to have communication, and yet we're still here. So, Herb, we do intend to still carry claims, right? We do intend to still fight in terms of our legal claims. And we do intend to stand on the defending the territory, because remember the four things that I told you that we need to make sure we always have: a government, a people, the territory defined, and the capacity to enter into relations with other governments.
All right. I know. Let me before I bring in Patrick, because we are going around the horn, and I know time is it's at a premium for you. I want to play something for you. And this actually I played it earlier, so I'm playing it for people who are joining us now. I was told that my grandmother was a Maroon, but be that as it may,
Mm-hmm.
nothing to do with that. I'm just looking at the fairness of the situation. I'm looking at the documents, and it would appear to me that what the government is doing is in total opposition of what it should be doing. And I listen to you keenly. I've listened to the government's arguments. And then you even look at the Constitution Reform Commission and what it's doing and how it's left out a whole bunch of, and not just the Maroons, but a whole bunch of people and issues as well. But I want to pay a little attention to this. This is our tribute to the first people of Jamaica.
Take away my land. What am I to do?
Because we are in this rural side, we are nobody to them. They don't see this community. We need someone to stand up with us to fight.
When I just say we are trying to stop it, and we can't stop it.
Me and you can't stop it. The whole nation need to come together, defend your rights. We have the national pledge. I promise to stand up for justice, brotherhood and peace, to work diligently and creatively, to think generously and honestly, so that Jamaica may, under God, increase in beauty. Any beauty that you got, we need to give.
We have to find back some of the Maroon spirit.
We need to fight for our community, our rights, because we know we have rights.
In Canada recently, my wife and I were deeply touched to meet many of those engaged in the ongoing process of reconciliation. Indigenous and non-Indigenous peoples reflecting honestly and openly on one of the darkest aspects of history. As challenging as that conversation can be, people across Canada are approaching it with courage and unwavering commitment.
The committee would like to ask the State Party about the status of the Maroon Treaty of 1738, as well as on the measures adopted by the State Party to engage in constructive dialogue with different stakeholders about this treaty, including with Maroon community, which allege that the State Party has unlawfully annexed ancestral lands of the Maroons, whose ownership is embedded in this treaty, without due process in violation of this treaty. According to the information received by the committee in December 2021, the government of Jamaica issued a directive to all ministries, departments, and agencies prohibiting the allocation of funds to the area of Akompong. The committee has also been informed that the Parliament and the government of Jamaica recognizes the elected authority of the Akompong Maroons every 5 years.
There is no other sovereign authority in Jamaica other than the government of Jamaica. Not 1 inch of Jamaica will come under any other sovereign authority.
Celebrate 282 years of recognition of the Maroons as a sovereign community. In my first 2 visits to Akompong, I spoke about the human desire that is universal to live in freedom and the importance of honoring peace agreements. This is as true today as it was at the time of Captain Kojo.
Yes, I
Give
know.
thanks, Ratty.
That is our
Yeah, man. Give thanks, man. There's a beautiful rendition, that man. Respect.
yes. Glad you appreciate it, my brother.
Yeah, man. Respect, man.
Patrick, you're up.
Brother Patrick.
Yeah. Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah, man.
Yes.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. I missed that rendition. I wasn't hearing a thing. It was total silence. But anyway, Ambassador Anu, you have done quite a job, outlining giving us an update. And in fact, it don't leave me much in terms of question. One question though, I'm not altogether clear on. Is there any mining being done right now or has ever started on Maroon territory?
Yes. So there is still mining that is going on now. Some mining recently
Hold on one
started.
second. Patrick, you can mute again.
Thank
All
you.
right, thanks.
Yeah, man. Thanks, Patrick. There's some mining that recently started, Patrick. And that mining started since the case for Akongpong was thrown out. Since the injunction was thrown out, which both of them were thrown out right behind each other, pretty much. This is funny enough and interesting enough after the justice, the courts and the judges got a big pay raise. These cases just mysteriously just got thrown out, right, with no proper, I would say, no comforting ruling that would really make any sense, right? So the mining that has started is going on. There's actually prospective licenses that are going on that actually breach what we consider the black line, which is the cockpit country, not the government of Jamaica's cockpit country protected area line, right? The cockpit country that we're all agreeing on in terms of maroons at this period in time is about I'm not sure if you guys have a map of it. Would you be able to pull it up, Ratty, by any chance? The cockpit country map?
Do you have it? You want me to share? You want to share the screen?
Yeah, let me see if I can. Let me hold on. Let me see if I can pull it up real quick. Hold on a second, because it's important. Hold on. Actually, let me see if I can go to just copycountry.com. Right. If people understand the map, maps, you'll get a good idea to. Hold on a second. But Patrick, while I'm looking for it, yes, there's mining going on right now by a number, maybe about 2 different companies right now, and they are going on all around the cockpit country, from the eastern side, the northeastern side, and also the southern side of cockpit country. That, if you guys know an area called like the Mile Gully area and all that, and even if you're driving. If anybody's driving on the new highway when you're going out to Mandible, just start looking to your left and your right after you go through the second toll. You're going to see a bunch of mining that is going on. Go ahead, Brother Ratty, while I look for this. As soon as I find it, I'll pop it back up, because I'm actually using my...
Why you focus on Patrick's question? Let me just ask you a question that one of the our supporters asked me to ask you. Very
Please.
strong support I had. The question is, why don't the Maroons have or seek a seat in Parliament, have somebody that can represent their interest?
Great question. That's actually what should be happening, Rattigan. That's actually, if we do this the right way, since 1962, since we were kind of left out from being expressed in the Constitution, similar to how the United States has the Indians expressed in the Constitution of the United States of America. That did not happen in 1962, but what was beautiful is that clause 4 of the Constitution for Jamaica, the savings clause, as we would call it in the legal world, right, preserves the 1738 treaty, right, which is why you will see the British High Commissioner coming here and reaffirming the treaty in 2019 and 2020, and even now hearing the Committee on the Elimination and Racial Discrimination at the 108th session just in 2022 reaffirm the treaty and ask the state party again, right? So it's like the compounding evidence, you know, based on even the rendition you showed. But directly, Rattigan, sir, just give me the punch of the question, because I want to make sure I answered it, right? Give me the question right there again.
The question is, 1 second. It's, oops.
So just to make sure I answered it in its totality.
All right. The question, and I know you're checking to answer Patrick's question, but this question, why don't the Maroons or will the Maroons seek a seat in Parliament to represent?
Right. So yes, good. So it's supposed to happen. So because knowing that all of that context behind you shows that there is a legitimate claim, there is supposed to be dialogue and communication. We don't have a proper representation in the Parliament to be able to say, here's X amount of people that live within this territory, right? As the Parliament, as the Prime Minister had said in the speech, in the outburst he had made, you know, it's not like we're a government saying that we're a municipality or anything. The thing is, to answer the question to your caller and to everyone and to yourself, it has to start at dialogue, Brother Rattigan. We don't have no proper dialogue for over 62 years. There's no constructive, real dialogue that is being entertained with the Maroons. So what do the Maroons believe? The Maroons believe that this has been nothing more than a whole plan, right, that has been put together by a bunch of people that said, we're going to go the whole way to just amalgamate everybody as one Jamaicans, and we're going to just remove the treaty, ignore it. And, you know, that is wrong, right? Because look here, Rattigan, I want to make sure that I pull this out for you. And it partially answers the question about should we be able to communicate to have a representation, right, in Parliament. Okay. This is a copy of the treaty from the archives, right? A copy of the original. Look, so I'll just make sure you can see it. It says, and it's signed by the archives, right? Hold on, let me move my hand, right?
Yeah.
It says what?
Yeah, I can see it.
Office of the Jamaica Archives, correct?
Correct.
Says true copy of the original, correct?
Yes.
All right. Now, let's look at
what's below it though. I see like a date or something. What's below it?
Yeah. Let's look at the date. Look at the date. So for full transparency. So this was the 29th of April, 2022. See that?
Is that a signature next to it?
That's a signature on top of the seal. So the embossed seal. So I'm going to show you the embossed seal. So this is the embossed seal. You can see.
Yeah.
Right? So you see the embossed seal, right? Same thing that you see with the stamp at the back. And each page is stamped, showing that this is a copy of the original. And you'll see the embossed seal there, right? Now, let's look at this now. This is a copy of the treaty that is inside the journals of Jamaica, right? And I'm going to show you it at the top. It says what? The laws of Jamaica, right? So it's there. And this is a copy of the treaty. And just so we started, so okay, we can get there. 1 second. It says, in the name of God, whereas Captain Kojo, Captain Akongpong, Captain Johnny, Captain Kofi, Captain Kwako, and several other Negroes, their dependents and adherents, have been in a state of war and hostility for several years past against our foreign lord, the king, etc., etc., etc. Who, you know, you can get this online when you look at it at the Harvard website and stuff, right? But we're showing you what is the context I'm showing you. We went inside the Jamaica archives and found this in the laws of Jamaica, in their journals. So it's not that they can not say the treaty is not on record, whereby the savings clause of the Constitution is not in force. It is in force, and we have these records. So therefore, we should be getting proper representation. If not, Ratty, go back to what you asked me. Is this just a land claim or an intertwined claim with sovereignty? Because in order to protect ourselves, our birthright, and our integrity, we're being forced to stand on sovereignty.
Okay. All right. You don't have to convince me, brother. We don't.
No, it's not. No, it's not for you, Ratty. Me and you're good, man. But you see, you have a beautiful platform, right? Where
Right.
this is for the intellects, right? We're trying to open the minds of many. Many will be able to use this video and replay it over and over. That's why I'm trying to take so much time. Even though simple questions are being asked, you'll see me kind of varying and trying to pull a lot of things together for the whole context of the matter, because the Maroon story is a complex story in Jamaica, because we're a complex makeup of people, right? The truth is, many Jamaicans are Maroons. That is the truth. And you are a Maroon, Rattigan, right? So it is right. So this is just how it works, right? But it's a matter of understanding. When you say where you can trace your grandmother, your grandparents, your great grandmother, your grandparents, where them did live, what were they doing during this time of slavery? If everybody stops for a moment and go check them family tree, you know what was wrong, Rattigan? The youngsters start to not talk to the elders anymore. And there was a segregation in the family under the Willie Lynch doctrine, right? Where them say, don't kill off the chattel stock anymore. Let's use a new psychological paradigm and break up mother and son, mother and husband, and let them fight each other, whereby now you can control them. This is what has happened. So our youngsters have no idea of oral history. We have no idea how to trace our bloodline on the land. What was going on during the time of 1655? Do we have any people that came onto the island at that time? Obviously, many people are going to have that bloodline that predate the war. But because it has been shoved down our throat that is only Emancipation Proclamation has made us free, and that is the history that we want to give the chattel property and those who want to identify as chattel property, right? That's the history you're left with. You're going to just be left with basic, whatever constitutional right that a government gives you. And in closing, in this particular sense, this is what the Maroons are fearing. We are fearing that we are going to be giving up almost a 300-year-old document, right? Because if we don't fight, because of a government that is believing and perceiving that we must submit to the stress, duress, and coercion of leaving us out of constitutional reform conversations, ignoring our basic human rights, ignoring our land rights, and ignoring that the rights that predated the 1962 Order in Council. And again, I will yield Ratty to say that it would behoove the government of Jamaica to remember that they're being watched by international parties that are suggesting that, not even suggesting, they're taking key note of how they're treating us as a people, how they're treating an actual reaffirmed document. And for that reason, it's going to cause them a problem in the future with many other agreements that they may have.
I tell you what, I want to open the phone line, but I'm afraid because I have Lisa and shall wait patiently. But
Yeah.
no, this is that no. We're going to run with this conversation, but when you move the phone line, we're there till tomorrow morning because the
No,
question.
man, go on, have a little time, man. Have a little time. And real quick, before you open the phone line,
I want to speak to something there.
Go ahead,
Patrick. Lisa, you're good, right? All right, good. All right, Patrick, go ahead, sir.
Yeah. Back to the question. Of course, we never finished with the question, the box side, but
yeah.
Back to this current question around the representation. That really puts things in a dilemma if we were to consider representation in Parliament as well, because what happens is that it would speak to the autonomy of the Maroons, because part of the treaty, part of the agreement is giving the Maroons a certain degree of autonomy. So even though you're part of the state of Jamaica, you're also a Maroon state in itself. It's just that to some degree, it's the organization of the Maroon state it still remains underdeveloped, right? It do have the structure, it do have the infrastructure, right, of a Maroon government that the Jamaican government recognizes, and then that is the aspect of it that should be written into the Parliament and the Constitution.
What's the question there, Patrick? Patrick.
No, I was just. Yeah, you hearing me?
Yeah, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's based on what Ambassador said. Ambassador, you muted, but based on what you were saying, based on what you were saying pertaining to the representation in Parliament,
right?
You're saying that is one part of what's needed, and I'm saying that if it was to be that you would have representation in Parliament the way we know it, it would simply be in terms of constituency representation and possibly municipal representation, the way it is in the general Jamaican state. But it would also affect your autonomy, because
not necessarily
based on the treaty.
Not necessarily though, Patrick. I know where you're
part of the treaty is that you have been granted a certain degree of autonomy, which requires the Maroons to have their own government structure, right, within the state of Jamaica. And then that is the aspect that should be written into the Jamaican Constitution.
I hear you. So, Patrick, here's the thing.
So that is a piece I wanted you to address.
No, man, and I'm going to address it. Here is, and I completely hear the perspective, because I'm a very keen listener to each word in the language that is being used, right? So I have to be very careful as an ambassador as well, using my language in terms of the people that I represent. The people that I represent in our oral history, we don't know anything as slavery. We conquered slavery. Therefore, King George cannot tell the Maroons after we beat him that we are going to get some form of autonomy, and everybody else is going to interpret that the Maroons don't have sovereignty, right? We never lost the war, we won the war. So nobody can dictate what type of government or how the land was going to be shared up or anything like that. It has to be understood that the Maroons won the war. That means as the nationals of the land, we are the landowners. What the British did is create a peace treaty to do business here, because in order for them to have stayed here and continued to do business and get money from their creditors, because they were in debt, right? They were fighting a war for over 84 years. So there's a financial agreement. The peace treaty helped to create various financial agreements whereby the British would continue to do business here. The problem, Patrick, which is why we're having conversations about autonomy and it being degraded and where we end up today, is that unfortunately some of our ancestors did not execute government how we know government to be, like how the British were running governments or other First Nations were running governments, right? So there's a major gap that was created for us. We didn't understand the forked tongue of the white, as the Native Americans say, the white man, right? We didn't know the forked tongue of the British was just trying to ensure that they did not lose the island and lose money from their creditors and everything as one of the main reasons why they signed the treaty, because they were losing money every single day, and they would have been bankrupt with the Jamaican system, what they had set up here, because sugarcane, remember at that time, was supposed to be the crown jewel of their system, right? So once they got that document and their creditors supported them and they were still here doing business, similar to like bauxiting, right? They now tried every effort to divide the Maroon communities. They divided the windwards from the leewards, told them they want to be over you, they want to subject you, they want to do this and that. And then now you have years later, you have a set of windward Maroons now that doesn't want to meet with their brothers and sisters and willing to throw some of their brothers and sisters under the bus. This is because of the psychological framing of what's going on. Why? Because it's important. They need to separate us so we are not united, so we cannot settle the matter on the ground. Do you understand where I'm going, Patrick? So it's not that I am saying that we want representation in the parliament necessarily. We're suggesting that communication can be had, that someone can be in parliament to say to you what necessarily, let's say they're making laws, or the Senate is making laws, right? Let's say it's even if not the parliament, that we have a seat in the Senate where we can give the voice of reasoning from our portion of understanding. That way our rights are not affected. And here's an actual case in point. In 1601, what is known as the City of London versus London City, they have a charter to be an independent state, and it's still operative right now. And they have agreements where they have people who are sitting inside the parliament in England, right, that is protecting their rights. So if anybody wants a case study, go and study the City of London versus London City, right, itself, where the Bank of England is and all that. Is a completely separate jurisdiction than how London operates, right? And it's the same exact system of how a compound is set up. There are so many advantages of the Treaty of 1738 if we were to update the treaty with the current government of Jamaica, that we could create a beautiful utopia in Jamaica. Beautiful, because the government of Jamaica throughout the years have already, through international and geopolitical pressures, have entered us as a people into certain treaties that we can't just jump out of, right? These treaties are creating whether economic hindrances, because we can't really go this way because we're going to be breaching this treaty and that treaty, you know. So there are these nuances. But look at this. You have this perfect virgin canvas, cockpit country, Akongpong, and the rest of the Maroon communities, Maroon Town, right? That can help and assist with the various things that can happen here on the island that can't necessarily happen in Kingston or other parts, that Jamaicans can still also benefit from a business understanding through these necessarily agreements. But nobody's thinking like that. You know why, Rattigan? You know why, Patrick? You know why, Herb? Because there are a few people on the island that know what I'm saying to you right now to the core, and they're greedy. They want it for themselves. They want it for them and their friends and their lodge members and people. So therefore, they will try to fight to the bitter end to ensure what I am saying and Chief Curry is saying and our administration and our people and the thousands of Maroons locally and the thousands of Maroons in the diaspora and the hundreds and thousands of millions of people that are throwing support behind us. They're trying to cast, you know, the racehorse goggles and blind people, right? So the treaty specifically spoke to, and you remember, if we know that it's reaffirmed and it's enforced, which it is, it spoke to that two people, right, could stay with the Maroons in terms of a diplomacy. That means two people can also be on the British side, which is now the government of Jamaica since 1962. We can know this is how we're supposed to have this discord. And I will say this, I won't call their name. Somebody from the sitting current government of Jamaica, whether they want to say they were running a joke or not, they're very, very, very good with the law. I'll just say that. Asked about that specific clause and asked in a joke. Well, if they want to say a joking matter, but it was more of a serious question. So what if I became one of the white men? So it showed me and Chief Curry immediately that they knew what we're talking about. They know, but it's just a matter of how can it happen? What kind of dialogue? What will Jamaica look like if we go down that road? Right? And I believe the current government of Jamaica believe that there's a legacy that they want to build. And in building that legacy, the Maroons are not in that legacy. Therefore, it's a complete barricade and blockade against anything that Akongpong is doing or the movement is doing to try and reestablish and reassert our rights. So with that being said, Rattigan, you know, it's just a steep hill that the Maroons face right now because the Jamaican state is heavily resourced. They are determined, and they're determined behind a leader that is seeking a legacy, to leave a legacy in a certain way and write it in a certain way. And unfortunately, no matter how much people try to convince him just to even have a conversation with the Maroons, you know, even when he decided to have the conversation with Maroons, he requested that Chief Richard Curry not be there. These are the things that we're talking about in terms of lack of dialogue.
All right, tell you what, let me because I really want to open the phone lines and give people a chance to ask questions. And Lisa, feel free for calling and ask a question and come and see how wait patiently. But I want to have Herb ask a question, and then I have I think it's an interesting question I want to ask you before opening. Or you know what? Let me ask you, and then while Herb is asking, I can open.
I found the map, by the way, Ratty. If you want to, so I can go back to Patrick to make sure he has his answer, his question fully answered. But go ahead, Herb, and when we get back to, I just want to show Patrick the map.
Okay.
Okay, I had a call a while ago, and one of the things that the caller was stressing. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, one of the things that the caller was stressing was look at the upheaval yesterday when Vibes get out of jail, right? And jump into an escort of 2 limousines, right? And the people were out there jumping up and down and everything. Do those people have a clue about what's happening with the Maroons? This is one of the questions the caller was asking. Because the caller is hearing what you're saying today, and it's coming true as to how you're being sidelined. And I use the word sidelined judiciously. Sidelined by the Jamaican government, where they try to steal your land, where they try to blunt you when it comes to your treaty, and then blunt you on any rights you might be claiming. And they keep pushing. They're pushing hard because it's almost as if they feel it's now or never, that they need to take over and dominate you guys right now. And so I get the feeling also that Chief Curry is a pain in the backside because he keeps saying and doing the right things, right? And you really and truly have to have the representatives that want to help you. You may have to make liaison with government people to ensure that when the question of the Constitution and the amendments come around, that you are featured, that you're part of it, right? I don't know if you guys do any lobbying, but the question is there a government minister out there willing to help you? Anybody that has reached out to you that wants to, and I mean, if it's secret, I understand, but all you have to do is just tell us whether or not anybody on any government, whether government before this or the government currently in power, has anybody ever tried to help you directly?
All right. Great question, Herb. There are some supporters on both sides of the fence. I would just say that some would have to be very quiet, obviously, if they're working with the current government, but they wouldn't be giving massive support or anything. They would just not kind of trying to push the major agenda. And those are not people, obviously, in the upper circles of the plot that may be underway against the Maroons. Obviously, the opposition would show support for the Maroons at this time for various reasons, but I do believe they see the legal claim, they see the practicality of making sure that the Maroons do communicate and have a great relationship with the government of Jamaica, so it doesn't affect the integrity of the independent parliament that was created in 1962. And of course, the opposition leader Mark Golding in 2014, when he was the Minister of Justice, he would have put out a document and made certain pronouncements that, you know, the rights of indigenous people should be recognized by the government of Jamaica within the legislation. Furthermore, he also recognized the legality of the treaty. And, you know, we have to remember he is also a learned man as a lawyer. So, you know, this is where he's able to appreciate the jurisprudence behind the history. Unfortunately, the current prime minister is not an attorney, and therefore he's not able to legally stand on a sound ground when he's making a statement such as, you know, what the Maroons have and what they don't have in terms of our rights. So it's just a lot of interesting things that are going to be playing out over the next, I would say, the next year or so until the elections. Rattigan and Patrick and Herb for us, because we are a pain. I am pretty sure we are a pain, as you would have put it, you know. But I trust in God first and foremost, and I trust in the support of the people and the intellectual minds out there to see that we must preserve the most important part of the Jamaican culture. Because when you say you're a Maroon first, right, Jamaica belongs to us. That's how we look at it. The identity of Jamaica and all of that belongs to us. We are a major part of the culture. So you can't say you're Jamaican and just want to leave out Maroons and 1738. It don't make sense. The spirit of Jamaica is a fighting spirit. The spirit of Jamaica is a rebellious spirit. We're a creative spirit. People look to us to lead them across the world. Why are we, the little country in the Western Hemisphere, everybody look to for leaders? Marcus Garvey, right? All of the Nanny of the Maroons, Sam Sharp, Paul Bogle, all of these were freedom fighters. We didn't just have one or two freedom fighters. We had a plethora of freedom fighters throughout our history. Most people are just comfortable, right? And now we're almost getting comfortable to the point where we're willing to throw away, you know, our most important relic within our historical birth as a nation.
I know. Let me ask you something. I'm going to open up the phone line. There's a man in history known as Shaka, Shaka Zulu, who resisted the British in South Africa.
Yes.
And there were treaties executed between them as well. And there's a province in South Africa called KwaZulu-Natal. And that's the homeland for the Zulus.
Yes.
Today, they still preserve their heritage, their history, their culture. They have a king, as a matter of fact.
Right.
Would be similar to what the Maroons are to Jamaica.
Correct.
So and that's how I view the Maroons, because the Zulus and the government of South Africa, or the people of South Africa, they coexist. They coexist. There are no issues there. Now, I want to read you some things, a very short thing. And then I'll ask you the question. It says, we, the indigenous people inhabiting the archipelago within the North American territory of the Americas, referred to as Jamaica, have reaffirmed our independence and birthright. Our government is styled as the sovereign state of a compound.
Mhm.
A compound town is the capital for cockpit country. We are the heirs to the 1738 Maroon Treaty and Maroon Identification.
Mhm.
Is this the reason why the Prime Minister is so, I'm about, I don't want to describe it. But I remember him saying that there is only one sovereignty in Jamaica, and that is the government of Jamaica. So we don't recognize UNO. So even if the
Right.
British say we recognize UNO and other governments and other organizations, we, the Jamaican government, we don't recognize UNO. And
Right. Right.
is what's your best argument to him? Just give me one argument before I open the phone line that you could say, Mr. Prime Minister, you're wrong.
Well, in simplicity, in him being wrong is the same thing I would have said to Dion Jackson Miller in what I presume would be my chess move on the board as a checkmate, is that the independent parliament that was created in 1962 is not the signatory to the 1738 treaty. It is the British Crown. Therefore, the independent parliament cannot make an act of parliament to erase the treaty, halt the treaty, and or subvert the treaty, right? We are dealing with an international document that the British Crown themselves has reaffirmed as the head of state of Jamaica. And unfortunately, the Prime Minister of Jamaica is not the head of state of Jamaica at this time. Therefore, he must, as a responsible government, according to the savings clause of the Constitution for the government of Jamaica, must perform according to the contractual nature of how contract law works. And he must speak with us at some point. If not, he will have to then deal with the repercussions of what a breach to a contract is, or what a broken contract comes with when you talk about going to the justice system or such.
Hold on one second. Well, one quick thing. I have a caller here, but one quick thing. The I've read the Constitution. I do not claim to be a scholar. I
Right.
claim to be an interested student. And it says to me that the head of state of Jamaica is a colonial power. It's vested in the king.
Yes.
By virtue of that, I'm saying, well, then Jamaica is not independent. It's not
No.
truly independent. It's not
No.
sovereign.
No.
So then, how can a country that's not truly independent, truly sovereign, turn around on people that existed before the 1962 Constitution and then say to them, you people are not independent and you
All
people
right.
are not sovereign?
Well, Ratty, watch this. If the Prime Minister doesn't want to believe me, let him believe one of the representatives in Congress, which is the legislative body of the United States, right? One of the
Yes.
Congress members, right? This is a proclamation from the US, the House of Representatives, to Chief Richard Curry. And let's just, without going through all of the fine print, let's just look at the main part. There's a seal, so it's a real seal, embossed, United States House of Representatives, right? Congresswoman Yvette Clark, right? Member of Congress. Let's read right there what it says, Rattigan. It says 285th anniversary of what? Independence.
Ah,
Right? With great honor and recognition under the leadership of who? Chief Richard Curry. So it didn't say, there was no ambiguity as well in this proclamation. 285 years of independence. It's reaffirming what you're saying, Rattigan.
right.
That could be the very reason why he's holding out against Chief Curry. He never got that thing in his name.
Proclamation.
Chief Curry got it.
Well,
See,
I must say, they
we
don't
just
just give
solve-
these
we
out.
just solve the problem. I'll ask Yvette Clark to send him one. I don't know what you want to say.
No, and it's profound. It's, as I said, it comes back to really looking at the facts. And if we look at the facts, there There are nations around the world that understand very much the international recognition of the Maroons, the legacy of the Maroons. And unfortunately, the government of Jamaica does not at this time.
All right, hold on 1 second. Hold that point. Caller, welcome to Reason, Miss Rattigan. Good night. Where are you calling from? Yes, sir. Thank you for being patient. Go ahead, please.
Why, every time we hear that story and I look for that story, we just know say we Prime Minister bad government badness push off. If I use child psychology, while out first, while they rob you.
Sam,
You know?
come here.
Because if us as the Maroons were here before them get independence from Britain, and Britain lose the war, right? And do business with us. We allow them to business here. How them come now? How him Andrew Wilson come now? What about sovereignty?
Yeah, that's a question. That's one of the central questions, and I don't think we've gotten an answer from the Prime Minister or the government. A clear. I don't think we've gotten a clear, unequivocal, defining statement from them regarding that question that you just raised regarding sovereignty.
One thing Andrew offer is just to go tea for the people in backside.
He put them backside. No, I drop me. Me hear what you said. Yeah.
Tea for them backside. I go send it out to the Chinese friend.
Right.
That him offer.
Right. Well,
So if you can't tell me, say the people we don't have no sovereignty, whatever, or we give up that, he win. But make him know say, as of today, make him know say, we don't give up the right at Jamaica. We don't give up the right over here for him.
all right. Well, look, thank you. Good. Thank you for the call. All right.
All right, Charlie.
Thanks for the support. Big up yourself. You know what, I know. You know what just crossed my mind? Well, no. I know disappear from me. I don't know, God. Big up yourself, Dr. Ben. World famous doctor. Wagwan.
Yeah, man, it's good to be here. It's good to be here. That caller sound like a good friend of mine, Uriel from down at Ochi. But yeah, man, very interesting discussion with Ambassador Anu. I'm glad that we're able to be on to share the plight that's happening over there in and I know he's not gone, maybe just some technical issues. But I'm glad that again, Reason with Rattigan. And I must big up, I'm in the streets. I'm doing my unofficial polling. And I'm telling you, I saw one client this week, Rattigan. And when I saw her, believe me, her health was not where it's supposed to be. So part of it was the fact that she wasn't sleeping well. So when I asked her, why you not sleeping well? She said, man, with show like Rattigan, man, Reason with Rattigan, I see up late at nights. So I'm telling you, this show is creating waves across Jamaica. And, the thing is, so many people are being educated. And I want to salute man like Herb Nelson every time. With every episode of Reason Rattigan, you see that little grey-beard man on. So I want to pick him up for the support, because people like him help to hold the arm up and get the information out there. But yes, I know, welcome back. And I was just saying that I'm glad that the platform is here for you to share the plight, because what's happening in Moortown, and by the way, I should be here this week. Hopefully I'm coming there Monday. Because what's happening there is not just the compound, the Moortown people's plight. It's a plight of those of us in Jamaica. And so, we have to stand with you, because it's an issue that affects all of us.
Absolutely.
Let me just, we have a call on the line, but let me just say that I know you said something that's resonating with me when you said that, if you check it out, most Jamaicans are Maroons. And I'm just wondering, Could it be that the Prime Minister is a Maroon and not know it? And if he knew about it, he would have changed him stance on it and the rest of the parliamentarians them. I'm just wondering because then it would be like fighting against yourself. But
It is
be-
fighting against
Hello,
himself.
welcome to Reason with Rattigan. Good night. Where are you calling from?
Hello, good night. I'm calling from Philadelphia. I have a question for Mr. Ben. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Ben, I ordered something for, it's totally different from what you're discussing right now, but I ordered something from your website and it's been 2 weeks now and I haven't seen it yet. Is it
All
there?
right.
Well, I can tell you, the person who deals with that is in Jamaica now. So I was gonna reach out to you and let you know that it's a womb. It's a well, I don't want to call it name, but it's going to. It's on its way.
All right. Take care, ma'am. Thanks.
All right, thank you, sir.
All right.
Bye.
Caller, good night. Welcome to Reasons Rattigan. Well, where are you calling from?
Good night, Mr. Rattigan.
I know this
Wilfred
voice.
Rattigan, the fearless leader.
Go ahead, sir. Go ahead with the question.
The fearless leader of the organization to fight for the poor class of Jamaicans.
Yes, sir.
I just
Thank
want to say
you.
that to you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Big up yourself, sir. Good work you're doing and continue to fight for the people of our country.
All right. Sir.
Fearless leader, the man hailed from Waterhouse.
All right,
Respect to you,
sir.
sir.
Thank you very much. All right. Caller, good night. Welcome to Reasons Rattigan. Where are you calling from? Hello. Oh, caller gone. Yes.
Well, Ambassador, one thing I say, if Andrew is a Maroon and he wants to come in and take over, I may have to order a crown and a scepter and dub Curry, King Curry.
Curry.
Yeah, there you go.
Hold on 1 second.
And let somebody appropriately put the crown on his head and give him his scepter.
Hold on 1 second. Caller, good night. Welcome to Reasons Rattigan. Where are you calling from?
Good night. I'm calling from New York.
Yes,
Hearing
sir.
me clear?
Loud and clear, sir.
Yeah, I want to ask a question
Go ahead, please.
in relation to the amount of acres, because looking at the document, right, and the document is saying the words and the figures don't agree. The figures are saying
1,500 acres.
while
Ratty.
the wording is saying 1,500.
Ratty, can you put up that image for me?
The land,
Oh,
they say all the land situated between Toronto Town and the capital country, there in Northwest, including Trelawney Town, a compound town, Scotts Hall, Moortown, and Charlestown.
No,
And to me,
no.
with all of that area, I can't see how it could be 1,500.
No.
No. No,
Go
let me
ahead.
explain it. Let me explain it to you.
Go ahead.
Let me
Explain to you. I'm trying to
let me
find a way.
explain- Let me explain to you, caller. Ratty,
Caller,
can
have
you?
please, and listen to the answer, all right?
Yeah, man. Listen, caller. Right. So, Ratty, do me a favor so I can answer this, because that question is not just for that caller. It's going to be for everybody. That's why I wanted to bring it up. It's the map. It will answer Patrick's question as well as many other people who, the constant nuance of the misunderstanding regarding 1,500 acres in terms of a people who defeated the mightiest army at that time that was colonizing the Western Hemisphere. To think that our ancestors would just negotiate 1,500 acres for our rights, for our posterity forever. No, it's absolutely absurd. If we're able to pull up, okay, no, take,
but keep talking. I'm trying to bring it up.
okay, no problem. Okay, right. So to understand the let me read it to you. To understand the clause 3. So I'm going to read it. Clause 3, thirdly. Where is it? Right here. I'm reading from the original, right? Thirdly, that they shall enjoy and possess for themselves and posterity forever all the lands, plural. So again, if we're dealing with the English lexicon, right here is where I would just say to somebody, just read the document and you see that it was pluralized. Not a single parcel of land, but lands. So I'll start again. Thirdly, that they shall enjoy and possess for themselves and posterity forever all the lands. So we know that is more than one. So let's understand, where are they now? Situate and lying between Trelawney Town and the cockpits. Let me repeat that again. All the lands situate, meaning stationary right here where we are, and lying between Trelawney Town and the cockpits. So Trelawney Town is where we're situated at the time when the treaty was being signed. So we need to understand what is Trelawney Town, not Trelawney the parish, but what is Trelawney Town at the time of 1738. Trelawney Town was a precinct. This precinct, I'm so sorry that the map is not able to pop up right now. But Trelawney Town as a precinct encompassed a Kongpong, what is called Moortown, Flagstaff, Eldersley, Whitehall, Garlands, Moko, the Quick Step, which we just had the issue with the other day. All right, and a myriad. So you're dealing with lands that are touching Boncasville, Westmoreland, St. James, St. Elizabeth, Trelawney, northern tip of Clarendon, right? Parts of St. And you're dealing with the cockpits, right? This ring road region, right? So when we're talking about 50, when everybody's trying to box back a compound into 1,500 acres, a compound is laughing, because when we continue to read after, it says, all the land situate and lying between Trelawney Town and the cockpits, comma. That's two parcels of land that they're talking about, situate and lying between. So Trelawney Town being one parcel of land, and all the lands that are going now to the cockpits, those are a second parcel of land. Listen to the third parcel of land, comma, to the amount of 1,500 acres, bearing northwest from said Trelawney Town. From said Trelawney Town. When we go northwest from said Trelawney Town at the time of 1738 as a precinct, do you know where we end up, Rattigan, Herb, Patrick, and Dr. Ben? You know where we end up? Freeport.
Oh, Freemansport.
Freemansport. You're ending up in the Montego Bay region. Obviously, if we were building roads, if anybody's reading the treaty, and we had the right to build roads north to St. James, west to Westmoreland, and south to St. Elizabeth, if possible, because of all the mountains, it showed that we needed access to and from ports and markets. Obviously, our ancestors were not going to leave us marooned in the middle of the island. Again, for the world to think with a critical mind, I'm challenging everybody. Why would we, after 84 years of war and slavery in the Western Hemisphere and us defeating the greatest, mightiest army, why would we, one, leave ourselves marooned in the middle of the island and not negotiate territory also on the coast for a port, when we are also negotiating our statehood, our sovereignty, our autonomy, right? And also for that reason that we were creating an army, a militia, to work with the British Army in the event that the island was going to be invaded. That's what the peace treaty is about, so that a third entity regime did not exist on the island, such as the Spanish or any other nation would come and then disrupt the peace treaty that had existed now for 287 years. So in that context is what I am putting as people need to understand what Trelawney Town was, what cockpit country today is, meaning the cockpits, the ring road boundary, and also the 1,500 acres that now has become, tourist business.
So hold on a second, because I'm reading this thing and it's I can see where the caller is. I can see the caller's point, but I also see where you're coming from to say, well, look, between Trelawney Town and Cockpit, it's more than 1,500 acres.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
Right. So if
okay, a Kongpong Town, watch this, Rattigan. Watch this. You ready? A Kongpong Town alone is 1,220 acres.
Right. So it couldn't be that. It's saying
couldn't be that.
Everything between these two places, and then
Yes.
you own the extension of that, then you own 1,500 acres going
Right.
beyond.
Is it? Remember, it's how they were writing it in 1738. obviously our ancestors in our oral history passed down to us. The reason that 1,500 acres was attached to the last part of that sentence is because we had to negotiate how we were not going to be marooned in the middle of the island.
Landlocked.
Because landlocked in the middle of the island. So and again, this can be corroborated with us having the authority to cut and clear all roads north to St. James, west to Westmoreland, and south to St. Elizabeth, if possible. Pull up the treaty and read that part, right? So when you pull up the treaty and read that, it's absolutely clear we didn't just have 1,500 acres of land. Then think about it, on 1,500 acres, how could all the Maroons who are also taking slaves from slave plantations and allowing them to submit under Captain Codger's regime under Clause 2, because Clause 1 ceased all war forever. Clause 2 allows for a slave, if you do not want to go back to the slave master and you have immunity from the Jamaican legislation from being whipped, which is what we negotiated, right? If they wanted, if the slaves or indentured servitude wanted to return because they didn't want to live in the bush with us, they had the right to go back to the plantation and be indemnified from their slave masters for running away, according to what the Jamaican legislature would do to them as a crime, right? We're not using emotion, we're just dealing with the time and the law in those perspectives at that time. Now, when we look at when we look at Clause 2, allowing for the freedom of slaves as well, for people to come, we look at Clause 4, fourthly, that they shall have the liberty to plant the said lands with coffee, cocoa, ginger, tobacco, and cotton, and to breed cattle, hogs, goats, and any other flock, right? How are we supposed to do all of that on 1,500 acres?
I'm sorry, I know, not to deviate, but it's very important. You mentioned something that I didn't know of any at all. And because there's a stigma out there, and it's being said that what part of what the Maroons did was capture slaves and bring them back.
You're right.
But from what you just said, it sounds as if the Maroons also negotiated. Shed some light on that. There was a negotiation that was done on behalf of runaway slaves.
Yes. So Clause 2, let me read it to you. You see, many people are not able to properly interpret the treaty and not be able to have a mind at the time of war at that time. And I'm going to break this down for you. It is going to be a challenge of the mind, because maybe the first time people are hearing it in this perspective. But many other legal minds and great scholars that I have spoken to that are out there in support and who I have debated, I end up coming back around and saying, yes, this is absolutely the correct thought process, because we can't think about it in how we are now thinking. We have to think about it at the time when it was written. So secondly, that said Captain Codger and the rest of his captain, adherents, and men shall be forever hereafter in a perfect state of freedom and liberty, excepting those who have been taken by them or fled to them. So you read? Taken by them, meaning we went and took slaves and freed them from the plantation. So that's not us returning slaves, correct? We're agreeing to that, what that just said. Taken by them, meaning Maroons took them and carried them with us, right? Or fled to them, meaning slaves who ran away and came to us as well, right? So secondly, that the said Captain Codger, the rest of his captain, adherents, and men shall forever hereafter be in a perfect state of freedom and liberty, excepting those who have been taken by them or fled to them within the last 2 years. Very important. Most people don't understand why that last 2 years was entered into the clause. During that time, there were indentured servitude clauses that when you came over, you had to be an indentured servitude servant for 2 years. This is business that the British Crown was dealing with at that time. I am not agreeing to it. I'm just dealing with the legal understanding of what's going on. There's a reason why that particular sentence, that particular clause was entered into that article, right? 2 years, because they're dealing with people that each time they lost people, similar to a Jamaican citizen saying, I no longer want to be a Jamaican citizen, I want to be a Maroon citizen, and no longer decide that, guess what, as a Maroon citizen, you may have the right not to have to pay taxes. Then when you think about 100,000, 200,000, 500,000 people doing that, then you realize the Jamaican state may be in problems. You see where this can go? That's why the Prime Minister is in an upheaval. Because if you listen to his rhetoric in the entire speech, you'll hear him make a very direct caution to the Jamaican society that this is not a game. And some of you may think it's hip or hop, but this is a very serious matter. And he used certain terminologies that if you hear it and go back and listen now, you'll realize he's warning people the integrity of the Jamaican state can collapse and be lost to the Maroon state. If you're listening close enough, you will hear it, right? So they're seeing it as a threat. But to answer your thing, finish answering your thing, Dr. Ben. Yes, we did free slaves and we negotiated it, right? Excepting those that have fled to them in the last 2 years. If such are willing to return to their said masters and owners with full pardon and indemnity from their said masters and owners for what has passed, provided always that if they are not willing to return, they shall remain in subjection to Captain Codger and in friendship with us according to the form and tenure of this treaty. Follow me, Dr. Ben? So we already negotiated for people to, when they came to us, to be able to be free. Watch this. That's not the only clause. So we're going to double down and show them one more time another clause that our ancestors did to ensure that people would be free. Because
so just to be clear, I know if they wanted to return home, the negotiation ensured that they have been immune from the flogging or the whipping.
Correct.
And if they stayed, the British ensured that they would be friend of the slave masters. In other words, they would have become a part of Codger's army and be friendly towards them, not hostile.
Correct. The whole thing was to cease hostilities. We have to remember that it's a war document, right? We're ceasing hostilities, and two nations are about to start doing business under a peace treaty so everybody can get back to regular life, right? Now, look at this. Sixthly, because remember, similar to Chief Curry's administration today, he's been perpetrated as a rebel, a Don, all these kind of things in the local medias, right? Now, obviously, when there is a force in play or a government in play and they feel threatened, they can class people in certain ways, such as this term rebel, which then creates a national security threat and all these kind of things, right? So let's look at what the document also says, that if somebody was classified as a rebel by the British, which only would be runaway slaves that are rebelling against the system, right? So outside of clause 2, there's another clause that frees those people if they were now classified as rebels against the British crown because they were fighting for their freedom across the entire island. You ready? Sixthly, that the said Captain Codger and his successors do use their best endeavors to take, kill, suppress, or destroy, either by themselves. So that means we had full autonomy to go do anything that we want if we felt our own threat as well, or jointly with any other number of men commanded on that service by His Excellency the Governor or Commander-in-Chief for the time being. All rebels, whatsoever they be throughout this island, unless they submit to the same terms of accommodation granted to Captain Codger and his successors. You following, Dr. Ben, everyone? So if these people who were deemed rebels, that the army was going to go after, that the Maroons would now join with the British army to try and suppress. Why? Because we did not want a third regime to be controlling Jamaica after the 84 years of war. We wanted a settled matter. This was the document to get rid of all of the risk so that everybody can move forward. So watch what happens. All obviously from our oral history, we
drinking warm water.
From our oral history, we understand that yes, we had to negotiate doing military exercises to protect the island from all rebels, either foreign or domestic, similar to what the United States would have as their pledge as well, right? But when we're looking at this sixth document, when it names you as a rebel, it says unless they are willing to submit to the same terms of accommodation of Captain Kodjo. So we already are negotiating that if people are deemed rebels and they want to stay with us, they can be free as well. Absolutely, I'm happy that you got this document up. So before I jump off, let's just discuss it real quick. Now, if you look at the red dotted line, that you see, that is Trelawney Town, what would be considered from old maps that we put back together, a rendition of what Trelawney Town as a precinct was, that encompass all of those lands. The blue line that you see is what the government of Jamaica has put as the new cockpit country, which is called the cockpit country protected area. You'll notice how much smaller it is than the black line. The black line is what you would consider the ring road of cockpit country, and it's not even a good map of it, but we accepted it during what was called the cockpit country truthing and boundary that was funded by the government of Jamaica and the EU through in the amount of 30 million US dollars, right? Whereby they were going around and putting down these yellow pegs with GPS locations in them so that they would be able to understand what cockpit country looks like. Now, our previous administrations, in terms of the Maroon Council, not necessarily the chief, as well as Chief Curry's uncle, and who was a deputy chief, Mary Rowe. Hear me say Mary, sorry, Curry, right? So I'm trying to remember something for a point to make sure I get it. He was very instrumental in ensuring that we understood why the Akongpong Town Maroons agreed to this black line that you saw. Not only was it being funded by the EU, that was a partner through the treaty, it gave us an understanding that there was now a defined territory, right? I don't know if you guys remember, when I started out, I was saying there are 4 things that you need to have to be able to, on the international stage, be able to make sure that you have solidified what you consider your statehood, or to exercise statehood. Would be a people, a defined territory, a government that you're exercising from that is constituted, and also the capacity to enter into relations with other nations. Akongpong, as I told you, I have all 4. But you'll notice from this blue line that this blue line is giving up in the top right corner, where you see something say SML 173. That's where Naranda was. So I'm answering a question for you now, Patrick. These are what you call the special mining leases that were given out, right? And registered, but from 2018 or so all the way to now, right? Some of them were prospective mining leases. Some of them were special exclusive prospecting leases. Some of them have, converted into mining leases now that people are actually active on, right? You will notice that a lot of these mining leases breach the black line, what is known as cockpit country, that was paid for by the EU and the government. But because in the very last minute, it was announced by the Prime Minister. So while Akongpong and all the Maroons had agreed to the black line and everybody was okay with the black line, the Prime Minister came into Parliament in 2019 and announced the blue line, which shocked everybody, which was completely different, right? So these are some of the compounding issues. So in closing, to answer your question to the caller and to everybody, this map will show you that it's obviously more than 1,500 acres that the Maroons own. And we challenge anybody to take us to court, to take us into a debate, or anything regarding the, what us just owning 1,500 acres. That's absurd.
I want to play two quick videos regarding emancipation because I really want to hear you talk about that particular subject. Let me
Yes.
remember this.
Yes.
So, but I have a question before I do that. The question is on provision 2. This is provision 2. Yeah, provision 2, where it says that the said Captain Kodjo, the rest of his captains, adherents, and men shall forever hereafter in a perfect state of freedom and liberty, excepting those who have been taken by them or fled to them within 2 years last past.
Right.
Goes on to say if you're willing to return, so on and so forth.
Right.
What happened in 1740 if you had slaves who were not considered Maroons, but they were runaway slaves, and then they came into
well, most of those people would have been considered rebels, which goes to the 6th clause now, Rattigan, right?
So anything after 1738, were they automatically considered rebels, even if it's one?
We were considered rebels. We were, remember how the preamble started that we were out a war against his sovereign king, you know, at the time, because remember he was considering himself to be the king of Jamaica, the king of Ireland, the king of Scotland, right? So they looked at us as rebels. We won the war as quote unquote rebels against the crown, the rebellion against the crown. So anybody else after this treaty is being signed now between two governments, the Maroon government and the British government on the island, was now going to be deemed a rebel, just like the same fight that we put up for 84 years. So in clause 6, after clause 2 was dealing with directly that Britain had a problem. We had taken most of their free labor, right, and taken it away from them strategically, which now created a problem on the plantation because there's no workers now. Overheads are going to be higher, right? So they needed to bring back those people because they were now recognizing that not everybody was accepting that they could live in the cockpits. You understand? It was very harsh terrain, food, weather, you know, children and the women and everything, but they would have run away, obviously, for their lives in order to preserve their lives rather than live on a plantation. But us, our foreparents, thought about it and said, okay, if women and children are to go back, how are we going to guarantee that under Jamaicans' law, they're not going to be whipped? They're not going to be have their fingers or whatever cut off or anything like that. We use clause 2 to negotiate that they would be able to go home and be indemnified. So they are diplomatic immunity, basically what we consider today, right? And if they didn't, if they didn't want to go to the plantation, they would stay with us and be in subjection to us. Clause 6 talked about anybody after the 2 years who will be considered a rebel. They would be able to subject themselves to Captain Kodjo as well.
All right. Before I play this video, just one quick question. It's coming in again from a very strong supporter of the program and everything that we do over here. If the Maroons are autonomous and independent and have their own government in a compound, do they have the right to bear arms, create an army, and defend themselves if attacked?
Yes, the answer is yes. To the Maroons who are quite aware, they will be able to support this, right? And we know it again. Melvin Correa, as a deputy colonel, left a lot of this information for us, and some of the elders who are still alive remember this, that in a Kongpong there was a vault that had guns there. There were guns in a Kongpong at one time that the British knew about and all that, because there was a militia that is supposed to work with the Jamaican Defense Force in the event of any rebels or anything. But obviously, as the treaty was getting older, not being attended to on both sides, not saying it's dead, that's what they want to believe. You tell a lie over long enough, it may become true, right? But in this case, it not necessarily is true. Again, the treaty was reaffirmed just the other day. But what is happening is that those guns were actually taken away, Rattigan, right?
By whom?
By the government of Jamaica and the Jamaica Defense Force through various coercive tactics. If many people are not aware, a lot of things that happened since 1962 is that the Maroon towns were infiltrated, and certain colonels, chiefs were placed there, most of them with military or police backgrounds, or would be active police officers who work with the Jamaican government. Therefore, the interest of the Jamaican government was being tended to because they have an actual puppet that is sitting in the seat, right? So for a very long time, this is what happened. 3-4 years ago, the people of Akongpong decided this was not going to be their fate, and they pretty much put up a big fight to ensure that there was going to be an election called, which is why we do have Chief Richard Curry today and his administration today.
All right. Mr. Lisa look like she has sleep now. Lisa, I mean, believe me, Lisa, this is a history lesson we can't make pass. So many people, I learned to, right? All right, good. Now, let me just put this. I'm going to play 2 emancipation remarks, statements, speeches, short speeches made by the leader of the opposition and one by the prime minister. And I want to get your take from it. And I also want to get the panelists. I want to get their take from it as well to see if we're in accord or if there's a disagreement. What is that disagreement and how we can resolve that? Hold on 1 second. Here we go.
Water before bed balances blood sugar levels and reverses type 2. Thousands.
My fellow Jamaicans, every year on August the 1st, we commemorate what many regard as the most significant milestone in our nation's history, Emancipation Day. This day holds profound meaning for us all, as we remember August the 1st, 1838, as a date which marked the end of a brutal and inhumane period of our history, after centuries of enslavement of our people. It is a day to reflect on the courageous and heroic journey of the many hundreds of thousands of our people who had endured unimaginable suffering. We pay tribute to their unwavering spirit, their unrelenting struggle for freedom, and their unshakable belief in a better future. While the abolition of slavery was a significant milestone, the vestiges of that period and colonialism continue to impact our society even today. It is manifest in prevailing attitudes and values about our self-image, our family structures, our society as a whole, how we deal with conflicts, and so much more. We must work together to address those lingering effects of the past, to dismantle systemic inequalities, and to create opportunities for all Jamaicans to thrive and achieve their hopes and dreams. Therefore, the struggle for freedom, equality, justice, and economic empowerment is not just a historical event. It is an ongoing journey for each generation. The struggle must continue as we build a more just and equitable Jamaica. It is through this struggle that we honor the memory of those, known and unknown, who fought and died as martyrs for the rights and freedoms we enjoy today, who resisted the chains of bondage with courage and determination. Our mission is to build a Jamaica where every citizen is emancipated from mental slavery and enjoys the full benefits of freedom, freedom from poverty and all its debilitating manifestations, freedom from discrimination, and freedom to achieve our fullest potential. As we embrace these noble aspirations, we also recognize our personal responsibility to be good citizens of this land, to love and care for each other, to treat each other with respect and uphold our laws, and to work for the common good of our national development. The cornerstone of our mission must be the unity and togetherness of our people, encapsulated in one love and directed by the grace and will of God. We will achieve that mission because we are a great, resourceful, and resilient people. Even in the face of challenges that persist, we have hope and determination. We are a nation of innovators, creators, and entrepreneurs. We are a people of unbounded energy and unwavering optimism. I commit myself to working diligently and steadfastly to address the injustices of our past and to build a better society for all Jamaicans, a future where every citizen has access to quality and affordable education and healthcare, and is prepared with the mindset and the skill set to be productive and to benefit from economic opportunities for wealth creation and self-advancement. Last month, our nation was rocked by the awesome power of Hurricane Beryl. Many parts of Jamaica were severely affected. Communities were disrupted. People lost their homes. Schools and vital infrastructure were damaged, and sadly, people lost their lives. Our spirit was challenged, and our resilience has been tested. Yet, in the face of adversity, we have stood together as the entire nation rose up in aid of our brothers and sisters who are affected. I will say more of this when I address you on Independence Day. Emancipation Day is a time for celebration. It is a time to celebrate our culture, our heritage, and the indomitable spirit of the Jamaican people. Our heritage is the priceless gift of our forefathers, an unending source of inspiration and unity as we walk the road of national development. As we celebrate Emancipation Day, let us recommit ourselves to this noble cause. May God bless you and keep you, and may God bless Jamaica, land we love.
All right. Now I'm going to play, it's only fair and fitting that I play this one.
Let me tell you a story of how Jamaica changed the world. By 1831, the system of forced labor, mainly through chattel slavery, would have existed in Jamaica and most of the other colonies in the Americas for close to 300 years. Almost all production of value in the colonies involved the use of forced and unpaid labor. This meant that all the profit and wealth created in the colonies, which went to enrich the European empires, whether from mining of gold nuggets, production of sugar, or domestic work, came from the subsidy that unpaid labor provided. To justify denying labor a share of the profits from production by not paying wages, the enslaved person was dehumanized and considered the property of the slave master. However, in the heart of our island, amidst the sugarcane fields and the oppressive weight of colonial rule, Sam Sharp emerged as a beacon of enlightenment, a Baptist deacon, a visionary, and a man of unwavering faith. He challenged the status quo on a fundamental and profound level. With his sermons, he elevated the minds of his fellow enslaved by showing them that Christianity did not justify slavery. In fact, slavery was inconsistent with Christianity. One could not be a Christian and be a slave or enslave another. Second, he demanded economic rights, organizing probably the first industrial action as we term it today, in the form of a peaceful labor strike to secure a reasonable wage rate of half the going wage rate at the time. The enslaved workers swore an oath to stay away from work until their demands were met by the plantation owners. What began as passive resistance became a full-fledged rebellion. It echoed across plantations, villages, and hearts. The winds of change carried more than whispers. They carried the flames of rebellion. The Baptist War, as it became to be known, erupted in 1831 and became the largest slave uprising in the British West Indies. Sam Sharp's vision was more than securing personal freedom. It demanded economic justice. He understood freedom also meant the power to control resources and engage in meaningful and rewarding production. The rebellion was brutally put down, and Sam Sharp was hanged on May 23rd, 1832. As the rebellion echoed through the hills and across the Caribbean Sea and beyond, it reverberated in the British Parliament. Not only was the rebellion a wake-up call to the precarious and fragile state of the colony and a harbinger of more rebellions to come, it was also used by abolitionists as the perfect example of the brutality and immorality of slavery. By the time of the Sam Sharp Rebellion, the Industrial Revolution was well underway. Technological advances and the development of free market ideas and principles inevitably came into conflict with planter interest. The profits from sugar were artificially created by slave labor, and the production of slave economies could be more efficiently done by industrial economies, which would mean lower prices to the British consumers. Sam Sharp's rebellion therefore showed that slavery as an economic system was no longer viable. Finally, the cries of the oppressed could no longer be ignored. In 1833, the Slavery Abolition Act was passed, a seismic shift that shattered the chains binding millions. Jamaica stood at the forefront, a testament to courage and resilience. Full emancipation was finally achieved at midnight on July 31st, 1838. And so, on this day, so hallowed in our history, we gather as one people to commemorate the unconquerable spirit of our ancestors, the brave souls who broke the chains, who dared to dream of freedom, and who ignited a flame that would forever change the course of history. Today, we raise our voices in jubilation. We honor Sam Sharp, whose sacrifice ignited a revolution. We remember his famous words in a letter to the British Parliament. He said, "I would rather die upon yonder gallows than live in slavery." We remember the countless souls who toiled, suffered, and yearned for a dawn of liberty. Their legacy courses through our veins, urging us to build a Jamaica where justice flows like our rivers, where equality blooms like our tropical flowers. We cannot afford to rest on our laurels. The struggle for justice persists with the lessons of history still echoing in our lives today. It is crucial that we continue to advocate for reparations, but we do not wait on it. We must use our freedom to build our own wealth and secure our economic independence. Every child who celebrates freedom today must be taught that their joy is built upon the courage and sacrifices of those who fought for freedom and for the right to be able to use our God-given talent and energy for our sustainable economic gain. So together, we honor our past, shape our future, and march towards our glorious shared destiny as a proud and free people ignited with purpose. Happy Emancipation Day, Jamaica.
All right. Which honor there.
I'm right here, man.
You know, I just want to start off the question and answer period by saying this. People must understand that freedom doesn't only mean a sense of you know, just a sense of freeness, a sense of doing whatever you want to do without being subjected to the whims and caprices and the instructions of certain people, within, of course, the construct of the law. But freedom also means that you're free to be dumb. Freedom. And I hope people understand this, because a lot of us in Jamaica, we are actually practicing our ability to be free, to be dumb.
Mm-hmm.
And I hope you understand that the history lesson that we're getting tonight is a far cry from what we've been force-fed. This is an eye-opener.
Yeah, man.
You said, I know. The purpose of this also is that people can use this as a learning experience to go back and look at this videotape and understand from whence we came. And this will hopefully give them insight into where we should be going. Because it cannot be that a government that is there to protect, to serve, to care, to comfort, to provide for all the people in the country can turn around and say, we not give them no services over there. So we're not sending ministries and agencies and whatever. We're not sending no resources over there. So that cruel. To me, that is worthy of a Magnitsky report, because that is a violation of human rights. Now, let me turn it over to you, sir. What do you think about those two videos? Because I hear two distinct messages.
Yes.
So,
yes.
Definitely.
Definitely.
Different messages.
Yeah, man. Definitely two different distinct messages. I have taken notice that continuously every emancipation, the government makes these very fancy pronouncements with the videos and stuff, kind of showing the history of slavery and all that, and talking about emancipation. But let's be factual with scholarship, right? No emotions, right? He used terms as unconquerable people. Yet you didn't fight for that free, quote unquote, freedom. You were granted it along with the rest of the colonial states and the Commonwealth when the colonial state decided to shift a system. And what was the shift in the system? Because most people don't know this and they don't look to the Emancipation Proclamation. They actually don't even read it and read the laws that came into Jamaica after Emancipation Proclamation. Emancipation Proclamation was a changing of the guard, whereby the people, the slave owners, yes, were freeing slaves from the way they were legally able to hold slaves into what it was now called apprenticeship, right? And if anybody goes and look at Governor Sligo at that time, in 1834, I believe it was Governor Sligo of Jamaica, he made a statement and said, you are now being prepared for apprenticeship, so that you will be able to learn what freedom may be, what may be in the future. You understand? That apprenticeship made you have to work 45 hours a week for your former slave master, which is basically a new form of slavery. This is what actually a job is. What we do today as a job and a 40-hour work week was conceived as the Emancipation Proclamation. This is what created free markets and capitalism, and a new form of slavery was moving from your hand into your mind. But most people can't put together the logics at all. They can't, they don't do it because they're not working from facts. They're working from emotion. They're not working from history and law. They're working from what somebody passed on to them in a WhatsApp group, and they're just regurgitating nonsense. And most people who are just fearful of what we're discussing here, Rattigan, Patrick, Dr. Ben, and Herb, they are going to put up a living fight to the very end to preserve what they believe is theirs, and it's not theirs. You have descendants from other countries coming to Jamaica even after 1962 that have found themselves in the government, that are standing on what they believe is some form of law or something that gives them Jamaica more than the first people of Jamaica that predate them going back to 1738. And this is a major problem, and the country needs to look at this as a problem, because most of you are listening to me out there, out of the 3 million odd people on the island, most of you are Maroons and you just don't know, right? but you're being told to hate the Maroons and hate the Maroon legacy, and that we're trying to split the island and it's us. No, 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 no. It's not us that is trying to split the island. It's another group of people that are trying to confuse the Jamaican populace and the diaspora, that we somehow, Chief Curry and his administration, are trying to create a separation and divide. And they're moving like this new tagline, One Jamaica, right? How can you move on in the future of Jamaica without the actual original remnants of the culture and the people carrying that culture with them? 1962 Emancipation Proclamation, and then 1962 cannot be the history of Jamaica. How do you start the history of Jamaica saying that we beg for our freedom? Beg, we never fight. That's what you want to go out there and tell the world. Great, great Jamaica that we stand on and brand Jamaica with beg feet. We're just like everybody else. He heard what he said it in his speech. Just like Abraham Lincoln at the time, he did an Emancipation Proclamation as the president of the United States before he was assassinated. He freed the slaves, and because of the whole situation with the North and South in the United States of owning slaves, they ended up assassinating him because it was a problem now, because most people were losing their money. Hence why reparation is still not paid to quote unquote black people, but money was given to the slave owners. People are not putting it together. It's similar to the Haiti situation, where after Dutty Bookman and everybody went and secured Haiti, guess what? Haiti decided not to cut a treaty like Jamaica, like the Maroons, with our experiment. They went with a different experiment and said, let's get rid of the Europeans altogether. Look at what Haiti is suffering from now, from that decision. No, and I'm not saying that they deserve it. Right? The people fought for it and they deserve it. It's Maroons as well. But we're looking at our Maroon brothers and sisters over there who Jamaica is saying that they're not taking them in, which is a human rights violation in itself already, right? Sending back refugees to a war-stricken country, right? Back on a boat that, however you're getting them back, right? It's not right. One. Two is that Haiti ended up having to pay France for that decision to kick them out, right? It's the same way it works for reparations. The money that had to be given in reparations went directly to the slave masters and the plantations for freeing the people that you are saying you are emancipated from slavery. The money went to the plantation owners for every single chattel property you own. In context, if I was to teach a child, for the people that are listening, it's simple. If I own, let's say I own, I don't know, a factory, and somebody's coming in and say, I want to buy everything on your conveyor belt system, right? You're going to say, okay, you can't just tell the person you can, you're going to take the building, but not take the machinery. You're going to take everything, right? This is what the plantation owners did. They're saying that if you're going to take everything from us, meaning the chattel property, everything, and all together, no more plantation system, you have to create a whole new system, and that whole new system was called apprenticeship. So I am sorry, Rattigan, and I'm sorry, Jamaica, to my other Jamaican family and friends. I cannot subscribe to just emancipation. As a true Jamaican who knows his history, who carries his birthright, right, very proudly, as a patriot of this island, because I am a true patriot. Chief Richard Curry is a true patriot. You gentlemen here are true patriots because you're standing on what is right. You're standing on the law. You're standing on principle. You're standing on culture. Whoever is not doing that, and we use ourselves as a measuring stick, Rattigan, right? If nobody is not talking like us, or leading the people in a direction to find the information for them to do their own discernment. We don't want nobody follow it. We want you to follow the information and go and do your own discernment. We already believe in the concept of less is more, right? Not saying that we're trying to push out anybody, but we understand that you have to know self first, And that if we have a circle moving, it is easier to move with a core set of people that are completely together, that understand the vision and the mission together, than to try and spread our wings to a totality of people. And then those same people in history will realize they kill Malcolm X, they kill Martin Luther King, they killed many other people, right, who are saying that they were giving up their lives selflessly in the aim of trying to educate Black people, educate African people, educate indigenous people. So, you know, the message that is being spun on both sides, there is the opposition leader, and, you know, I saw Lisa Hanna recognize Nani of the Maroons, right, in the sense that she was doing a little pronouncement. If anybody go and check her social media, she did something to kind of signal that she was remembering the Maroons. And Rattigan, I want to point this out to you. Did you find this curious yourself? And everybody on the panel, actually. Do you find this curious that None of the Maroons, who they said did not want to sign the treaty and wanted to fight to the very end for a free island similar to Haiti, right? How is she a national hero of the British crown? Because the British is the head of state. So how does Nani of the Maroons, who is known as a freedom fighter, who is known in history, as it's being said, that to say that she wanted to fight some more when the treaty was being signed. That is what's being said out of the Windward Maroons, such as Moortown. How does she end up on the money, the currency, and as a national hero of the British crown system? It is something to this day us as Maroons are still trying to figure out, because Nani is before Emancipation Proclamation.
Mm-hmm.
So you see the confusion in the history and the literature, Rattigan. You see, it's like it's being made up as they go and as they want it.
Yeah. Let me ask you one quick question. I just need a quick answer, and then I want to bring in Patrick. Bring in Patrick with his historical perspective on the Emancipation Act, as well as anything else he'd like to raise. I know that MP Bobby Montague submitted or tried to table a bill in Parliament making Taki a national hero.
Mm-hmm.
Are you aware of it? And if you are, where's the position of that bill right now?
Yeah, I am aware of that bill. I'm not sure where it has reached in the House or the Senate. You know, we have kept Akompong has kept quiet on it. We obviously are just monitoring that situation. The reason being is because, for some reason, we believe it's because the British, as they would want to continue the divide and rule, somehow are telling people that Akompong is the reason for Taki's death, right? That we are the ones who captured him and turned him over and all of that. And that is working to the benefit of the Jamaican government, obviously, because of the history of Taki and people having the sentiment and the sympathy of that culture, that they want to now capture him just like they did with Nani and make him a national hero as well, and then blame Akompong for that. So again, you know, enemy creator, you know, good cop, bad cop.
All right. Patrick, come in. This is a resident historian. I know he's here, and we just played 2 videos, and you heard his comments on both videos. Plus, we've been discussing the treaty of 1738. Give us a perspective, please.
Yeah. First of all, as was correctly stated, you know, it's 2 distinctly different speeches. Let me start there. But to focus more on the statement of the Prime Minister, I would want to say, first of all, that we have to understand what emancipation really is.
Mm-hmm.
Emancipation is not a declaration, all right? Because when they say they free the slaves, it don't mean that freedom is immediate. It's a process. Furthermore, one of the things which history has taught us more than anything else, right, when it comes to dealing with the colonialists, it comes to dealing with slave owners and all of that, is that they are relentless. And I'll use this example to demonstrate that. When the decision was made to free the slaves, basically what the decision was, in essence, is to turn the slaves off the plantation. Because them being on the plantation, being owned as slaves, means that the slave owner is responsible for their welfare, for their well-being and everything. Right? Because they are enslaved. They don't work for a salary or anything like that. So they have to be fed. There's an economic responsibility on the part of the slave owner to the slave to feed them and sustain them. So their idea is by freeing them, they have relieved themselves of that responsibility. But at the same time, in freeing them, it means that they have nowhere to go. They don't own land. The only landowners are the slave owners. And it means that they have nowhere to go but back to the very plantation itself. And this is where they become what the term they like to use is tenant farmers, where they work and they work and they work to sustain themselves, and they are sustaining themselves is working to pay to the plantation owner. So on top of everything now, they become even more indebted without any kind of compensation.
Correct.
So this is the first thing that needs to be understood when we think of emancipation. It means at the same time, in today's context, when they talk about how far we have come and what's happening and so on, the process continues in that emancipation means that you're still toiling to this day, no kind of reparation, no kind of compensation in any way.
Correct.
Right? And you remain a slave.
Correct.
An economic slave
Mm-hmm.
to the slave owner. What we see happening in the process of all of that too, particularly under a government like the current Jamaican government, is you're seeing a new political class emerging, right? Where it is spurning new landowners, new capitalists, right? In the form of what we're seeing with the very Prime Minister and his wife, right? And many of his cabinet colleagues and parliamentarians, right? Where they are just fattening their nests. There's no emancipation there.
Mm-mm.
Emancipation is a process, and that process is yet to begin.
Correct.
I'll go further. When they speak of independence, that too is a process. Because independence means self-determination. Where is the self-determination? Where is it? The self-determination means, first of all, reparation. It has to address reparation.
Yeah.
Because it means a new beginning. It means beginning to the end of the colonial system and beginning of a new system.
Correct.
So we are yet to see that. Mark Golding's speech, on the other hand, offers some hope. But in offering that hope, there's still a lot of blurriness. There's still no clarity in terms of what's being offered, in terms of where we need to go, in terms of what we need to do, in terms of what is our role. So there's a whole lot that needs to be dissected and really start the real conversation of emancipation and what it means. Until we settle that, we can't move anywhere forward.
I agree.
All right, Patrick.
I agree.
Let me bring in some more of the panelists. Thanks for those insightful remarks. Herb, when I hear from you for a while.
Not hearing you, Herb.
Herb, we can't hear you.
Not hearing you, Herb. Okay, give me difficult.
Deal with the technological.
I think he's muted.
We bring in Dr. Ben.
Yeah, yeah, man. It's a whole lot, and I think I'm really happy to have Anu on the show tonight, and I think that Anu, you may need to come back because yes, the propaganda machine is out there, and I don't think a compound has done enough to rebuff or to rebut the what's out there, the narrative that's out there, and in helping to galvanize yourself. I mean to galvanize the government.
Yeah, man.
Education has to be done to allow persons to understand the narrative, the perspective from the side of the Maroons.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people, a lot has been said. I mean, you spoke. I mean, volumes tonight. It has helped to put a lot into perspective from it, because one of the things that people ask is, and you spoke to it tonight about the Maroons being able to defend themselves. Now I understand how the Maroon who were a small militia lost their weapons and are now perceived, if they were to have weapons, they are now perceived as a gang.
Correct.
Yeah, because so we understand the process. And now with a government in place who is trying to reclaim the Maroon status of self-governance and legitimacy, that is now being seen as a gangster trying to mobilize his force, and that is so much. I would love for you to speak. I recently was I spent some time, because I'm here in Portland,
right,
and I went up into Moortown, Millbank, that era, and these are areas that were areas where Maroons settled. I mean, Moortown is just a little bit below Millbank, and these were lands considered to be controlled by Maroons. I was there recently, and I don't know if people understand what happens here in Jamaica, but while I was there, I saw the forestry department controlling these lands. By the way, some of these lands, I've seen diagrams showing me that a large percentage of these lands were lands given to soldiers in World War II. I saw over 500 5-acre and 4-acre properties that were given to persons. That was Maroon land. Now ended up being lands controlled by the forestry department. Many people don't know, and I know you come. Many people don't know the big business that forestry is involved in, where they get huge grants to plant trees. And I was there just so that you come. Let me tell you what I experienced when I was there. I was there for about 2 months. I was living in a tent in the hills of Maroon territory for 2 months. No light, no water, living like that. And I found that because these Maroons were very simple people. I was told, this was what I was told by the Maroons that were there, that agents from the forestry department came in and paid them lots of money to plant trees. So they told them that, listen, these lands are now forestry territory. And they went in, they paid them a lot of money, and because these people are so simple, all they do is plant and look wild hog. That's what I saw when I went there. They lived off selling renter, because they hunt yam right around the clock, and they sell wild hog. So this is how they live. So these persons from forestry came in and said that this is now government land, and they gave them money at the time, which to them was good. And then after a period of time, when they planted out the trees, they now told them that now that the trees are planted on the land, it's now forestry land. They have nowhere to farm. So they were the ones involved in planting the trees, not knowing that they were putting themselves out. And so I'm just thinking, using this model, if the forestry had its way, isn't this what they would have done to all of what is considered to be Maroon territory? And now these lands are now claimed as government lands. And when you go into these territories, because Maroons were there, it meant that they were ackee tree. It meant they were breadfruit. It meant that they were pear. It meant that a lot of the forests consisted of trees that were also sources of food. All of these trees have been removed and they have been replaced by trees that is now lumber. So if these people are now hungry, they no longer had trees that they could eat from. But I want you to maybe share with me, is, do you have any knowledge of this plan of taking away more land from Maroons under the disguise of forestry lands?
Yeah, man, absolutely. Thank you, Dr. Ben, for bringing up. That's a very crucial point, and it highlights one of the big issues that recently just happened the other day, right? So it is known in Maroon territory, not just Akongpong, but across the vast Maroon communities, both in Windward and the Leeward, that the forestry department for a number of years has been going around and planting like pine trees and various other trees, not fruit trees as you would have mentioned, Dr. Ben. And it's important to know what these trees are doing. These trees are going to be earmarked for something called carbon credits. And this is how, through the forestry department, through the government of Jamaica, they're laying claim to the lands that they're planting up these new trees on, right? So it is a coercive tactic that belongs to the colonial system, that, it looks very naive at first in a sense, but it is coming with a major crutch in the back end, especially if you don't have a strong Maroon administration. You're going to find yourself having various evidences of claim against your territory or lands, such as what we just mentioned as the forestry department. I want to go back, since we're now talking about land and land rights and stuff. I want to kind of go back a second to reparations, right? Important to know, other than not us, meaning Maroons, but people in general, if you subscribe to the emancipation portion of history and you're saying, yes, this is where I'm starting my history from, in terms of not being a slave, right? In terms of emancipation, apprenticeship was the new status. It's a status game, right? So apprenticeship is the new status, and apprenticeship didn't give you no land ownership rights. I challenge anybody to go look at the Emancipation Proclamation for Jamaica by the governor, right? And go and look at every other document that came out behind that. It states unequivocally that the slaves that were freed during emancipation during emancipation could not own land. They did not own land. There were serfs still, right? So if we look at 1834 all the way to now, right? If you look on what is called a warranty deed, you'll still see the word tenant, right? Because you don't actually truly in the status of what you are as a subject of the king, because the king is the head of state. You cannot legally own a lodial title where you can exempt yourself from paying property tax underneath the crown. These are the things that Akongpong and most of the Maroons throughout cockpit country can boast about, is because we did not start our history from emancipation. We predate our history prior to that, so we don't belong to the status of apprenticeship or serfdom, right? We belong to a core history of a freedom that has already existed prior to that, where we will take what people want to describe as autonomy or, limited rights, but you get to do is we'll go ahead, whatever you want to class it as. We'll just be in our corner knowing that we actually have complete freedom from a system that has actually been created for another set of our family members. And no matter how much we sound their bang and try to warn people, you know what today is, Dr. Ben, in this era, and Herb and Patrick and Rattigan, we are witnessing nothing new under the sun, where the Maroons are once again trying to take people off the plantation and bring you into a free society, or try to communicate with the government of Jamaica to say, hey guys, you are now our brothers and sisters. We're not talking to the British anymore. Let's talk as free people together, and let's find out how everybody can be encompassed under one document moving forward and creating a free Jamaica and settling the island once for all. So this concept of one Jamaica and all of these things that they want, we can somehow find that without leaving out anybody, right? Unfortunately, as we've been discussing, the heirs to the plantocracy since 1962 and their cousins who have ventured over since 1962 and infiltrated the government system that was given to them, they're hell bent for the sovereignty of that the Maroons were able to gain in 1738. They want it so bad that they will deceive the people. They will tell the people that you need to be labor right or jail or PMP. They'll tell the people that you must hate the Maroons. They'll tell the people that the Maroons captured them and put them into slavery, right? And there's no context behind it other than just a divide and conquer. But hopefully, Dr. Ben, that the people will take some of this history that we're partaking tonight, and maybe some others that we continue to do with the media machine, as you're saying, to counter their narrative. Hopefully, but you can beat a dead horse, them say.
Yeah, but I think about it because, again, as I said, I spent some time in Maroon territory.
Yeah.
I knew Chief Curry. I met Chief Curry after what I went through.
Right.
Because I was staying in these lands, and we were constantly bombarded by forestry agents who came to tell us that we had to come off the land.
Right.
And I saw it as such an injustice. I didn't see anybody standing up for them. I saw people on because what happened was that they were supposed to be given a 2 miles buffer zone from the residential area, in other words, where people lived, to where the trees were planted. There should have been a 2-mile buffer, because people would live and they would plant in close proximity to where they lived. And I'm telling you, I saw this. I saw people living, and there was not even 200 feet from where they started planting trees. And these were persons, because when I went to this area in Millbank, these people lived. I got up in the morning, I got up in my tent, and I saw these young men with what was called their junga going to hunt wild hog with their pack of dogs. I saw them with their farming tools, and I realized that this is how these people have lived for over 200 years. They didn't know any other way to live. This is how they lived, and they were being told that they could no longer plant and grow food within as close as 200 miles from where they were living. And I saw no leadership. I saw nobody there standing up for them. And what I saw was a template and a model of how, if given the opportunity, listen to me now, I saw a template and a model of how, if given the opportunity, a government will take away and displace people without thinking about them. When I was in the cockpit, I saw scientists from abroad. I saw a wisdom, because these people were so in tune with nature. The wisdom that they had, the love and the respect that they had for the rivers, the love and the respect that they had for all the land. And I was saying that these people valued and respected the land because this is how they lived. We are being taught that something like the forestry, you're planting trees, you're not living, you have no direct impact from planting these trees, and you are branding or postulating yourself as if you care more about the environment than these people that live directly in that setting and have a vested benefit from any damage or any damage done to that society. No. And I went and I started to do research, and I realized that this is, so when I met Chief Corey and I met him, I said, my gosh, this is a man who is actually policing not only for himself but for his people. This is a man, and I realized that to stand with him and to stand with his government is not just to stand with him, it's to stand for yourself. Because as I said to you, the template, when I looked on the land, Rattigan, when I looked on some of the lands, because I went on, there's a site called Eland, Jamaica, and I looked at the multiple splinter titles that was even given, let us quote unquote, that was even given to World War II vets. So if it is that these splinter titles these lands were given to World War II vets and they didn't take it up, then it should have passed on to their families. How did it end up in the coffers of the forestry department? How did it end up there? And why isn't anybody talking about this? So when you go there, you will see the lands, and if you still go on Eland, Jamaica, and look at these lands, you will see the person in whose name the titles were granted. Some of these family members are still alive. Some of them don't have a piece of land to even set their foot on. How did these land end up into the forest department? And what people don't know is that this system, let me put it that way, this system creates ways how to get money into who they want to get it to. And one of the ways is through what we call donor agencies. So we have these donor agencies that are set up to pilferate billions of dollars to persons, but they have to meet certain criteria. So the more land you have is the more trees that you can plant. The more trees that you plant is the more you can increase your funding proposal for more money every year, because these donor agencies have billions of dollars to give away.
You know what, Dr. Ben, you have to let the people know too, it's not any type of tree, it's trees that they own the intellectual property to. So you have to see the word intellectual property being planted on your property.
Yes.
That now removes your ownership from the limited rights that you already had. You see,
so this is at the root. Yeah. So what happened? Quick step. This is at the Rattigan. I would love for you. Maybe I'd love for you to get images of those lands.
We can't get. We can't get.
Yeah, because when people see us talking, they don't understand that we're not talking about the legacy of Maroons. We're talking about the legacy of Jamaicans. Based on what you just said and based on what Patrick just said.
Yes.
From the outset, Jamaica's independence was not in the best interest of the populace. It was not in the best interest of us. So we don't think that we have a government trying to represent us because they love us and they want to take care of us. We need to understand that a road is only deemed fixable if it is a road to an area where attraction site is.
Dr. Ben.
All right. Hold on a second. Hold on. Can anybody? You can't hear me. Everybody can hear me, right?
I can hear you.
All right, good. All right. Here's what I forgot to do. Now I forgot to play, because I know you definitely have to come back, because
I forgot.
You're going to teach class, Ratty. You're going to teach class.
Yeah, time fly, but we can just play this one tribute.
I will come back, man. Guaranteed, Ratty. Guaranteed.
We can just play this one
tribute to another
Maroon. And then we'll come back. Hold on a second. Here we go. Hold on.
Welcome to National Heroes Park. See over here, Marcus Garvey is buried. I'm heading down to Nanny, hopefully national hero. One of the things that always struck me about Jamaica's history is how much we have not understood the value of our people in that history. Imagine a woman who was a tactician, a military leader in the 1700s who decided that she was not going to trust the British and she was going to lead a war against the British for her freedom, a woman. And Nanny of the Maroons decided to not only lead a group of persons called Maroons, but she walked from the east in Portland, from the Blue Mountains, all the way to Pudgeo in a compound. So for those of you who have been to the Blue Mountains and you've been to a compound in St. Elizabeth, you know that it's not an easy deed. Imagine doing that when the British had soldiers, cane fields, and she got there. And she was the woman who led the first Maroon War. So much so that literally the British had to negotiate with her and give the Maroons freedom 100 years before full freedom. That's a very special, courageous, tenacious woman. And there is a spirit about the Jamaican woman, and that spirit comes from our history. We can't celebrate as women in Jamaica, really, without saying, big up Nanny, because all of us, whether we like it or not, are really a part of who we are, to your strength, your memory, your activity, your rebel spirit, your fighting spirit, right? Anywhere you are, spirit, strong in
When I want like zero no smoke, it go go no cool head for stone.
Yeah, me have to play that one if a big up nanny. All right. Now we have to kind of put this to a close for
Yeah.
now. Just for now. Because I know I'm telling you, I was told, let me get you up on the big screen here. I was told that you were only available for half hour, and I was prepared for just half hour, half hour gone, about 3 hours.
No, let me tell you, Ratty, let me tell you, I'm actually traveling, right? Based on what has happened and all of that, we're trying to make sure that we get our things together as Maroons, you know. And I, at the time when I was telling, you know, our assistant who helps us very well, people in the camp, I said at the time, boy, I think I only have 30 to 45 minutes. But the truth is in a Rattigan. I said to myself, if I ever, the day I come on your show, I know it's not no 30, 45 minute business. I know, say, we're going to get deep and going to be we're going to be talking about this in multiple
Well,
times.
I know. To Candy Max right on the thing, because we are trying to cut the show from 10 hours to 5. But originally the show was a 2-hour show, you know. Then it went to 5, and then it gone to like 9, 10, 11. So you look at Candy Max put another thing. Rattigan, I don't know where you get this idea that you can end your show at 8 p.m.
No, it is, let me tell you, it is a blessing and I really appreciate it. I was actually about to tell you that I'm going to run to get some dinner, you know, and all of that too. But it is definitely a pleasure. Ratty and brothers, Dr. Ben, Patrick, Herb, I'm here. If you invite me, I am more than grateful to come to your platform and with all of you lovely gentlemen, you know, esteemed gentlemen, to be able to speak to our people because it's very important. We are at a very important mile marker in history. I believe the alarm bell has gone off for a number of the intellectuals, a number of the middle class, and a number of the people who they believe have no idea what's going on. You know, they say God is, you know, and our ancestors will go and touch the meek and those who they believe have no education before they give it to the richest man and the smartest man, you know. And I believe we're touching the hearts of the people right now because it is a bit too confusing, Rattigan, what's going on. You know, nothing really is making sense anymore with what is happening in terms of the current leadership. So please let me know whenever I can partake again, and I will definitely try to make the carve the time out. And thank you, gentlemen. Thank you all.
Well, I tell you what, I'll tell you the blessings, my brethren. It was our pleasure and our privilege to have you here, and we look forward to your return.
And Chief Corey sends his regards to each and every one of you, just so you know, you hear? And I'm sure I warming up the platform for Chief.
Ambassador, can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I apologize earlier. I don't know what happened to my sound.
No, very
but
good.
Listen, I noted that Chief Curry made a statement that he would gladly be the support element to ensure Jamaica's food security.
Yes.
All right. And I think that is very distinct and very important because Jamaica really and truly, the people don't have no food security.
No.
During the COVID, there's a lot of people that had issues.
Mm-hmm.
And they never got that 25,000 or 10,000, whatever it was that they were promised.
Right.
All right. So what has he done in terms of planting? Right. And is he working with the forestry department in that regard?
Mm-hmm.
Or is he doing it on his own? Of planting food that could supply villages and towns in need.
Sorry, can you hear me now?
Yeah, I hear you.
Yeah, man. So yeah, for some time now, Chief Corey and the admin has been definitely from day one. We've been invested into agriculture. most of the agriculture that has been going on for the last couple of years has been more for the town, right? Ourselves, to be sustainable. As you know, if anybody knows a Kongpong and you know how 45 minutes or 40 minutes to Santa Cruz and those various places, so to have to always go to a supermarket and stock up to go back up to the hill is not always feasible, especially if you don't have enough, cars and buses running that route all the time. So we've been growing food for the internal community for quite some time. What we're doing now, Chief has started a number of projects. We've been working with the USAID on what is called a spice project, where we're doing pimento, turmeric, and ginger. That project has started in its pilot form and has moved on. We're also looking at an 8 to 10 acre project where we're doing, mixed crops. We already have yam that is planted, dashi that is planted, most ground provisions, banana. There's breadfruit. There's a lot. To be honest with you, a Kongpong cannot starve, right? The Maroons cannot starve. So what do? We already have a template where we want to carbon copy that. Why? It's very important to note whenever you have big rains or storms, or like let's say there was a massive tropical storm that came one time. I remember when all of the lettuce was wiped out, all the onions and all of that. We weren't affected at all. We could have actually started going to market and bringing stuff, which we did in the local side of St. Elizabeth. But imagine now if we had the investment of Jamaica that believes in this project, right? And we are able to bring people in for these investments and things, right? In terms of boosting economics, it will not only give sustainability, the protection of our food security and a food bank for Jamaica, but it will boost the GDP, because we wouldn't have to keep doing importing. We'll begin to start having enough for ourselves and begin to start exporting, right? But that's for another topic and another day.
I got you. Thanks. Thanks for your response.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. Ratty.
All right.
Respect, Ratty.
All right. Take care, Red.
Boss. Yeah, man. Respect. Gentlemen. Esteemed gentlemen. Blessings and respect.
Pleasure
Always.
meeting
All right.
you.
Yeah, man. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Listen, Dr. Ben, we might have. It look like we might have to do our thing, but you're regular. You're regular. You know what I'm saying?
Right. What happened to your lady, Ratty?
Yeah, she's here. She's still here. I'm gonna bring her on.
All right.
Yeah, she's still here, man. Her name is Lisa Ann White, and she has a very sad story to tell. And Lisa, before I bring her on, I wanna apologize to you for waiting as long as you did. Now, and I want to thank you for waiting. And I mean, you understand the importance of the broadcast tonight. Yeah. And hold on. Let me bring you on here.
Enjoyed it.
All right, there you go. Ladies and gentlemen, here is Miss Lisa White. Lisa has a very heart-wrenching story to tell us. And I see we have over 1,200 devices still logged on to the program. And I'm sure there'll be many more watching it after the broadcast is over. So, Lisa, what I'd like you to do is just go ahead and take your time, tell us your story, and we will go from there.
Okay, so my name is Lisa Ann White. My only son, Jamar Lance Payfair, he lives in St. James, Leety. On the March 11, 2024, my grandson called me about around 2 o'clock, said my son is not breathing. Actually, I didn't even pick up the call because it was like 2 o'clock. I talk to my son every day, every night, every minute. So I already spoke to him. Someone was like, oh, Jamar. But when it was my grandson, I realized I was like, something wrong. So he said, Jamar not breathing, my daddy not breathing. So I said, well, I didn't even take the call. I listened to the voicemail. So anyway, I tried to call back. When I called back, I heard that Jamar is dead. So I said, what are you talking about? His girlfriend was in the hospital. His cousin, Mr. Moore, take him to the hospital and said he's dead. I still don't have a straight story how my son died. The only person that gave me a straight story was my grandson. He's 8 years old. He said, Mommy woke me up. When I look into Daddy's mouth was black and Daddy was dead. That's what my 8-year-old grandson said. The other gentleman from next door, he told us that he went to call Miss Sylvie, that's Jamar's grandmother, and said, you don't say that your grandson is dead in the house. Now, Sharon, that's Jamar's girlfriend, Mr. Moore, that's a police officer in charge of the Anchovy Police Department. He's the head of the department. He and whoever take Jamar and took him to the hospital. When he got to the hospital, he was already dead. Come to find out, Sharon said, oh, she had to go give a statement. So I said to her, did anybody come and look at Jamar's body or anybody come and investigate how Jamar dead? She said, no. She went to the police station and she gave a statement to Mr. S. Walker. Mr. S. Walker took the report at the station, did not come to the house, did not do an investigation, did not see my son's body. Because when I asked, she said no. It continued. I keep on asking, when is the autopsy? When is the autopsy? Autopsy finally done on the 4/27. I was there for the autopsy. When the autopsy is done, they said the autopsy is inconclusive. So they're going to take some substance from his stomach and they're going to send it to test it. I said, okay. I came back. They said I can go ahead and bury him. I happened to bury Jamar 5/26. I buried Jamar on 5/26. After the burial, the funeral happens and everything. I came back to the United States. Coming back to the United States, I never stopped calling to find out who have the specimen, what is going to happen. I asked Mr. Moore. Mr. Moore said he doesn't the specimen is sent to the lab. That's what he told me. I said, okay. I said, how long is it going to take for me to get a result? He said 3 months time. I said, okay. I still calling because I'm a mother. It's my only child. My child never sick. I still calling. I still pressing the issue because I need closure. The kids, I have to be thinking about 2 grandkids. So at the same time, I have to be thinking about how these 2 grandkids are feeling. If I'm feeling so bad, their father was like the caregiver for them. Everywhere you see Jamar, you see the 2 kids. So my thing is, I can just imagine how they're feeling and they don't have the support that they need to actually get through this crisis. So I'm trying to get my part of my life situated that I could get their part situated. So after calling around, I call iPro. When I call iPro in
What's
June.
iPro? What's
iPro is like investigation of the police report something another office. That's where if you have like a problem with the police officer or anybody in the police force is doing anything, you can call them and they launch an investigation into the matter. Okay. So I've been digging and I've been searching and I've been trying to find who to call or what to do. Because I'm not going to just sit down like this because I have to get information from here. So when I call iPro, the first time when I called, the lady said she called down by Anchovy Police Department. She spoke to somebody and they said, oh, the specimen is not going to ready till 3 months. After she gave that information, I got news that Sharon's statement was, why am I calling around trying to make trouble to find out who killed Jamar or how Jamar died? So I said, I'm his mother. I have to call. If nobody's going to call, I have to call. That's my job. So anyway, I didn't pay that no mind. I went ahead and I called back on July. I called back on July. I have it in my book, July about 23rd, 24th. And this lady put me onto her supervisor, Miss Campbell. Very rude, very disrespectful. I have her on tape and everything. Oh, why you calling? I already told you it's 3 months. And I told you got to wait. And I said, you're not listening to me. I just called down by the police station and I spoke to Mr. Williams, Sergeant Williams, and he said the specimen did not take to the forensic lab because the Mr. Walker forgets. That's the first time on the 23rd of June. I know that the specimen did not go, and the specimen, they forget to take the specimen. So my head raised, and I'm like, this is ridiculous. So I kept calling. So I called her. Then I spoke to Miss Combs. That day I called everybody in the police department in Jamaica. I called everybody until I could get a call. Spoke to Miss Combs. Miss Combs took the matter in her hand, and she said, this is just not feasible. She just can't tell her that he forget. I went and called another Mr. Brown, Mrs. Brown. Mrs. Brown tell me that she's going to check into it. I never heard from her. I called Mr. Walker on the 24th. Mr. Walker said, I have too much work. I forgot, and I did not take it. I said to him, I said, excuse me? He said, that's what I said. I said, I forgot, and I did not take it. I said, who is in charge of you? Your senior. He said, Mr. Moore. That's the Moore is my son.